I played a little bit, but I'm not terribly good at it. So, kind of like Minecraft, right?
Mostly. What's up?
Why you look like that, bro? Why you look like that?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
You look cool. Ebel.
Is there voice chat now?
Wait, what?
Oh wait. Oh my god.
Serious?
I have your stream up. I was like, what the heck is going on? Never mind.
What you about to
Get
say?
that.
Oh, me and you're watching Honor as well, huh? Yeah. Okay. Where's the fucking loyalty? We're gonna watch.
Yours.
We're gonna watch Honor. Crazy.
This guy. Okay. So what you gotta do is you gotta get some pebble, some rubble,
Some
right?
rebels.
Some rubble, some pebbles. You know.
Do we eat them?
No, and then you're also gonna punch the trees, the leaves. You don't have to break them down. Just get the leaves. You know, get some plant fiber, right?
That's how we make axes.
Yeah, and pickaxes and swords. We could actually cut this tree down to get the sticks. We'll do that.
Doing my fist.
Yep. Nice. And pick up some sticks. Where are you? Where'd you even go?
Right here.
Where's right here? Oh, you're there. Okay. Um.
I revert back to my origins.
You know how to craft? Have you like
Yeah.
got that far?
Yeah.
Okay.
I built a house.
Oh shoot. Alright.
Built a big house. Built a mansion.
Mansion, really?
Started making fun of the poor immediately after. I told myself, one day I'm gonna turn on my day ones.
Oh yeah. There's a new setting in the settings somewhere. I want to turn on real quick.
I switched up on my day one, man. Shut up, chicken.
FPS overlay. Color coded. Boom. Nice. Okay.
What was the setting?
I just want to see my FPS on the screen.
Oh.
Yeah, that's it.
I fear looking at my FPS.
I can run the game fine, but when I open up OBS, I like,
It dies.
yeah, it sucks.
That's me with Battlefield 6. I can play every other game but Battlefield. So this is Ash. He also makes content, but he also edits.
What's up?
So I had to get, I had to switch up on my day ones. They're also playing all the mods 10. I don't really feel like playing all the mods 10 right now.
Oh, Minecraft?
Yeah, I get out of the mood really quick sometimes. I've been wanting to play like vanilla, but those two don't like vanilla.
Yeah.
That's the downside, but it's okay. So, I switched up on my day ones. Meet says hi to you, by the way.
Hello. Through here. That one server I'm on, the vanilla one,
Yeah.
I've been playing it like too much, and I'm getting bored of it now.
I completely forgot to put up an application. If you're talking about Campcraft.
Yeah, you should try it.
It's me and my editing
It's
skills,
hella-
man. It's me and my editing skills.
Alright, dude, I'll do it.
You'll do
I'll
it?
do it.
Bet.
They don't need to know.
All I have to do is schizo freaking in content.
You just gotta make a make a script. Make a script, and I got you.
A script?
You know, like an idea, like
Oh.
what I want, you know.
Oh.
And then you gotta do the voicing, obviously.
Naturally. Do they accept schizophrenia content?
Well, it depends on how schizo we're talking.
The clips you've been editing for me.
Well, I guess we'll see.
That's where the peak of my content comes from.
We'll-
Oh, you just wait. I'm cooking, bro. Cooking.
Bro, I'm waiting for the hour-long one.
Oh, the rant one? That's an hour long?
Yeah, maybe make an hour-long rant. You sound really like insane.
Out of it, you know, like I woke up this morning. The fuck is that? Oh, that's the portal,
Oh, is
right?
that the thing? Do we
Yeah.
need to go there?
Let's go.
Alright.
Let's go liberate a population. I hear they have oil back there.
Oh.
Yeah. Your American senses just woke up and you're like, oil, you say? Fuck off, bear.
Oh hell no, it's a bear.
Oh fuck, yo! Yo. I voted for Obama. I voted for Obama. I voted for Obama. I voted for Obama.
Wait, only 2 raw meat? That's terrible.
Just eat it. In real life, that shit would kill you.
No, but there's these other cow type that like drops like 7 raw meat. I'm like,
Can we
God.
farm them?
I
Actually,
don't know how, I think you can farm. I
the
don't know how it
real
works.
question, right? My main goal every time I play vanilla Minecraft is a mass production farm, like a mass slaughterhouse.
It might be possible. I don't know if you can breed them yet. So.
Oh, I'm finding out if I can do a mass. What the fuck are you? Are the ugliest fucking thing I've seen in my life, and I want you.
Oh, it's a little guy from what's it called? Shoot, what's it called?
A movie, probably.
The Lion King.
Oh, yeah, the hog from
Right?
Lion King. Yep. Easy, Dan. Fuck you. Fuck you. God damn. Where's the portal?
It's over here, somewhere.
We need to go liberate the people that live beyond the portal. Free them, I tell you.
Apparently, this is all new world gen, too.
I
They
like.
just updated it like today. Where's the portal at? Oh, right here.
Hold up, I'm coming down. I'm coming down. I'm stealing everything from inside this place. I fucking hear him. Hold up. Come here, bitch. Hold up, no, there's a strat. I know a good strat. Fuck with him. Just get him to chase you and get him stuck behind somewhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot, he hit me.
He gets confused. So, like, when he gets stuck right here, he gets confused.
Oh, I'm inside now. Okay.
He's dead. He teleported through. It's okay. I, ended his bloodline. Gold ore and a copper shield.
Ooh. Okay. Got some stuff. I got a crude mace, even though they had that in the game.
Because it's crude, dude.
You go through-
No, not
Okay,
yet.
okay.
Yep.
We even,
Ooh!
I don't know if it's really worth going through anymore.
It's nice to explore.
I guess.
I mean, it's very beautiful. I feel like they took their builders from Hypixel and was like, Fallout.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Take advantage. I, too, exploit my workbase. Okay, so I don't know what we do with this, but I like unlocking it.
You can unlock decorative chests. Wow.
Deadass?
Mhm.
Nice. God, I hate when the thing talks to me. Like, don't fucking talk to me. Where the fuck do you think you are?
Wish you could like kill the animals here.
Honestly. Bring meat.
I'm sorry.
But they know. Oh, I'd slime them all out. Don't fucking wave at me, you bitch. Feel like I can't fucking kill you.
Have you seen the video where someone has a gun and they shoot up like a whole like village of those?
I have not seen that, but I know which mod I'm installing.
No, it's a rifle in the game already. It's just like base in the game.
You're
It's kind of crazy.
not fucking with me, right?
No.
I'm behind the
Wait,
portal.
Me behind the portal.
I teleported behind the portal when I got out.
There's a rifle and I think a pistol too, and a rocket launcher or something like that.
Just a piece of my granny. I think about it every time I hear the hoot. Oh my god, dude. Someone on Kick just told me that they got 500 subs to up for grabs, bro. What?
What?
Yeah, I don't moderate my Kick chat. I only use it for no, like I just have it.
You do Kick too?
Just kind of out there. Twitch is my.
Hmm.
I used to do TikTok, but not anymore.
Yeah. I do Twitch, YouTube, and TikTok, but
I do the same except TikTok now.
I thought about adding Kick to it.
Hmm?
I thought about adding Kick to it, but I don't know if my Wi-Fi can take that, Loki.
Kick is worth it. You get monetized very quick, but the issue is getting turnover, so it's getting people to actually watch the streams. Like,
Yeah.
good luck. A lot of people
All too busy watching Claviker.
that or whatever gambling stream is open.
I don't understand watching gambling streams. I mean, I guess it. I don't know.
Because gambling's good for you.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, I'm about to die, dog.
Don't worry, I got you. I'm also, by the way.
Oh.
You fucking died.
Died by a black wolf.
I also died by a black wolf.
Okay.
Oh, that black
Okay.
wolf voted for.
You wanna go get our stuff?
Yep, let's go. Fuck, did we die?
This way.
Oh, we died really close.
Yeah, we've not gone far.
So, the goal, right, I'm guessing is building a big fuck off house. I don't really know what you do right now in this game,
I think the goal for us should be to go into zone 4, which is the lava zone.
There's so 2 and 3 beforehand?
Yeah.
I just went to the lava zone, just like that.
Did you die?
No,
Oh.
I didn't even know.
I've never even been there, to be honest. I don't even know if it's like hard to go into or not.
It's a bit of a bitch.
There's this zone. This is zone 1.
Alright.
Zone 2, I think, is a bunch of desert. This is a bunch of desert.
Is this map infinite?
Yeah.
Guess we're gonna explore every single zone. Either this stream or down the line. Or we'll see. My issue with streaming for a long time is I get bored
Yeah.
very quick. That's why I haven't been able to go over like 2 hours. Tired. Not having as much fun as I was, you know. I believe this
Yeah.
is your stuff right here.
I already picked up your stuff though, so just take that.
Switched. We changed.
What was I gonna say? I honestly I kind of stream for like 4 to 5 every time I stream. Sometimes depends. If I stream alone, there's a good chance it's like a 30-minute stream.
Really?
Yeah.
See, for me, if I did a 30-minute only stream, it would go against the challenge.
Okay, yeah. You gotta like kind of thug it out.
Yeah, I gotta thug it out. Oh, what's up, Shadow?
Shadow.
If I don't thug it out, it breaks me, right? Because weekdays I only stream once. Weekends I stream more. Like I'll either stream one a day on weekends, or I'll stream twice, like different games.
Okay. Oh no, playing alone, just playing any game alone for me, I just get like really depressed and bored.
It really depends on the game, you know? Like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 or Red Dead Redemption 2 are more fun solo. Good you, Shadow.
Oh yeah. Red Dead's real fun alone. You don't need anyone to play that.
Exactly. You got accepted to college. Fuck yes, bro. Now you can drink
Yeah.
in college. And gamble, most importantly. But good. Congrats, bro. Have fun in college. It's a terrible experience. Money's good. I mean, I don't know. I gotta like be able to commit to long streams, especially if I'm gonna do this for the next fucking year. Or Shadow.
I've heard shorter streams and more clips are better off in the beginning.
It has made a big difference. I mean, I got to 4K pretty much from 3 videos and a bunch of clips.
Yeah, which is insane, by the way.
I know. I'm just him. The goal this year is 10K.
That's a huge goal.
Yeah. I mean, considering I'm at 4.7, I think 10K is pretty there, you know? It's pretty feasible. But
keep uploading, bro.
exactly. That's why I get the stump, you know? I don't know what to record, and when I do, it's like, oh shit.
Let's record slop. Get it out there.
So what start doing? We're gonna be busy, buddy. You have your content to put out, and then you have to edit mine. Eh.
I don't even have any. That's the problem. It's so boring. Yeah, I'm so bored. What am I gonna do?
Honestly, you have to like find a group of people to fuck around with. You can join us.
I have a big group.
You don't? Do you do content with them?
Yeah, no, yeah, I do. Oh, I just almost killed myself.
For real?
But the problem is, they're all on that server. So, like, low-key, they're all, like, Minecrafters, which isn't bad. And stuff, but...
Fuck, bro. You can hang out with us. We play other games. You don't want to play Minecraft one night? You can come chill with us.
What you got? What you got going on?
We play fucking everything.
Okay.
We'll even play shitty AI slop games, bro. We play friend slop games, right? Like, oh, the fuck is that?
What is that?
It's a void crawler.
Never seen that before.
Must be new.
What's he got above his head?
Got his fucking symbols on his ass. I got an essence of the void. You good? Fuck, what?
Mace out and take this guy.
Oh god.
Whoa, whoa, wait, hold on.
I think PvP's turned off.
Yeah, but I can still push you around. That's fun. Do you have a torch by chance?
Hmm?
You have a torch? No, I'll craft one.
Okay. Massive global. I like the enthusiasm. I do hope so too. Yeah, what's your trans name? Ash, LAXS. X.
Wait, look at my username in game and add an extra S in it.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how to say the last. I know how to say the first.
It's just blacks.
Did that hurt you?
No.
Blacks. Nice.
What?
Pretty cool, actually. I like the spelling for that.
Black.
Oh, but instead of a CK, it's X. Okay.
Gamified.
Okay. Okay. I like that. I like that. Mine is Jonesy because someone misspelled my name. Yep. That's what happened. That's how Jonesy became to be a thing. A friend of mine years ago when I used to play Roblox misspelled my my first name. And well, not exactly. Well, kind of my first name. Except it's really off by quite almost every single letter. And then I was like, Jonesy. Okay. It used to be originally with an E and a Y instead of an I. And then I kind of like settled down with the I.
Yeah, the I's way better.
Yeah, looks better. And it used to be a caps J. I was like, I think a lower cap, like a lower cap J looks better. I was like, yeah. My vibe now. I mean, you've seen my thumbnails and my my content, so you know exactly. This matches me. The fuck is this?
More pebble. More rubble, I mean.
There's ore right here. Oh, copper.
Ore. Oh, is that copper? True.
No, we need that shit. Oh my god, there's so fucking much. Yes. Yep, exactly like that.
What I just hear? Oh, what the?
You don't know what I'm doing? Swimming. The fuck is that? Oh, it's the void crawlers.
Dude, he hit me like crazy far. Well, I'm gonna hit him with the mace and see how.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was terrible.
It's like the maces that you get in the challenge things there in Minecraft now. The fuck are they called?
No idea what you're talking about.
The hammer there that you can get in Minecraft.
The mace?
Yeah. Like that. Except that thing's better.
Mr. Shadow. Yeah.
You gotta follow. I'll fucking
I
talk.
don't have all
Building.
my Twitch stuff up, even when I'm recording. I don't know why, but
Oh, so do I. So do I. Makes it easier. Let's say I finish recording. I'm like, fuck it, I want to stream for a bit. It's available right there. It's fucking hanging out there, just waiting for you.
it's been raining for a while.
Now let's not discuss the rain there, buddy. It's gonna get worse. Yo, sneak up on the ops.
Is there one?
No.
Oh, is that I can't see.
The fuck is that thing?
That Triceratops? What is that?
Oh my god, it is an op.
Oh my god! Oh, I'm about to die.
Hey, you fucking missed, dumbass!
Let me heal up real quick.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Ooh, look at that.
He broke my fucking shield.
Damage.
He broke my fucking shield!
Damage.
Oh my god. Oh!
Damage.
Oh my fucking god! Oh my fucking god! Oh my god! Leave me alone! Leave me alone!
He's one. Nice. Sit down. 6 essence of void. I don't know what that does.
I guess we'll... There's a fucking other one!
just swim across at that point, man.
Oh fuck. Oh my god! Oh, yeah. One more hit and I'm dead.
Got him.
Good shit. What's that red stuff over there?
Oh, what is that red stuff? Oh man, what are you? What are you?
Oh, it's another one of the void crawlers.
I'm not liking these ones.
Oh?
They're a little weird.
They are. Little critters. What is this?
Fens.
Fent? Bloodleaf.
Interesting.
Need that shit? I'm gonna leave it there. I also don't need my broken shield.
Is this swamp or something?
Yeah, this is swamp.
Doesn't feel too swampy.
Minecraft. Aw, man. Oh, fuck a snake.
No, hell no.
Oh, there's another fucking void crawler. Oh, he's aggroed on you.
One hit that guy. One hit that guy. Crazy.
Crazy with it. Alright, shall we establish a homestead somewhere?
Ooh, hold on.
Ooh.
Hold on. Found something here.
Maybe we can renovate and increase the rent by 3 billion%.
Good idea. Oh, bruh.
Oh, there's another one right outside. Yeah, there he is.
Oh, he's blocking. They can block? What?
Oh yeah, dude, they can fight back. Oh,
I didn't know they could. I didn't know they had like the good AI to like block and stuff. Oh, this looks terrible to be in right now. We should not be here.
yes, we should.
I need to heal up.
I got one of the archers just trying to like flank me right now. Oh, I'm gonna
I wish you could just hold your button while eating it to like click every time you want to eat something.
I honestly, that's a big thing that's missing. I already know someone modded that. Fix it. There's a one right behind you. There you go. You want to go down there and fight them?
No, but.
Well, let me heal. Bonsai, bitch.
Oh, I missed.
Holy shit, there's a whole fucking gaggle of them.
Good.
Oh, I'm on the verge of dying. Oh, I'm gonna fucking die. Yep, I died.
Oh hell no! I'm out of here.
We died at distance too. Holy fuck.
Oh. How far?
Oh, for some reason it doesn't show it on the map.
Oh, I hate how the map works. I wish the map was like better. You can't see where everywhere you've been.
Yeah. I definitely didn't die at day 0. That's okay. I didn't lose much. Yeah, I didn't lose much. I see death day 1.
Alive out here.
I see death day 1 now.
Okay.
I'm on my way. We took a risk, bro. We took a risk.
This could be a cool little place to live.
We can clean it out. I'd be down. I'm on my way. I'll be there in about 6 or 7 days. Yo, Loki.
Too old for that, buddy.
I'm too old for that? That's crazy.
What do you mean? Yeah.
That's breezy, bro.
Like what? 20 what? What even are you?
26.
Damn.
Damn! Yo, you sound like the people who were cutting my fucking hair this week. Like, oh, how old are you, man? I was like, oh, 26. After I said 20s, damn! Yeah, I didn't even get to finish. Like, he was like, hold up, before you tell me how old you are. What year were you born? I said 19. He said, damn! I was like, the fuck do you mean, damn? It's like, the second that you said 19, I knew you were fucking old. It's like,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
and then he's like, okay, finish. It's like 1999.
I mean, you're on the cutoff, but you're still.
I'm still far enough from the cutoff. I was born in August. Yeah. Yep, yep. I remember, yeah, I remember 9/11 actually. I remember like it was like, I don't know, like 25 years ago or something like that. Tell you all about it. I was like 2 years old. I was taking a nap actually when it went down. I was taking a nice nap in, rural Ontario there. Just absolutely chilling down. I didn't have, no, I wasn't too concerned about it, right? I knew they had it handled, so they didn't need me.
Of course, yeah.
They would have obviously called me, right? They would have been like, yo, Jesse, need you right now. They didn't. Okay. Well, I'm glad that they were able to deal and take care of their problems without me. Now, I was busy at that time.
Yeah, busy sleeping.
Exactly. I was busy not knowing how to comprehend the French language. Because I'm French.
Oh yeah, because Canadians are like that.
Yeah, we have French Canadians. I actually remember, I think I was like 3, maybe. Okay, I remember being like, buongiorno, you know? I remember the first time I spoke French, I probably said something. Actually, don't even remember how old I was. Probably about... I was having full conversation. I was already in the situation room. I was actually there when Bush was like, dude, they have weapons of mass destruction. I said, yeah, they do, bro. They told me about it, actually. They called me on the phone. Like, by the way, fuck you, we have weapons of mass destruction. Nothing you can do about it. Literal quote, by the way.
Okay.
Now, it's like, that us? He and Schwarzkopf are good friends. Schwarzkopf was the commanding general of the invasion of Iraq.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
Good friend of mine, actually. Remember when he died at the funeral?
I see you. I say we don't live here and we go into the desert right next to us.
Why don't we what? The desert?
Yeah.
Is it warm over there? Oh, did you get out of the hole?
Yeah. Oh yeah. The second you died, I left. Yeah.
Still see my stuff down there. I'm not going down there. Fuck that. Let's leave.
All right. Here. Here. Yeah. Let's go.
Yeah.
Take a left here. Yeah. Let's go.
That real estate shit, you know. Bad neighborhood.
Too bad. What
This
is that
is-
huge thing?
This is Minneapolis.
Are we in the mud?
I believe this
What
is.
the-
We're in the Badlands,
Quicksand.
bro. It's bad over here.
Like quicksand right now. Didn't they added that?
Did the Forgotten Temple move?
Wait, is there another one?
I think so.
What? Hold on. What's going on here? Any bad dudes around? How do you get in?
Sense.
Well, it's a
Yes.
little different.
Group pickaxe. Hide. Okay. So we go down there and pick a quick visit to the ops. Never mind.
I'm gonna mine in a little bit. Wait, oh, he's following me here. He's a way different guy.
Hey, what's good? But oh my god.
He's stronger? He probably is stronger.
I just teleported it. Holy fuck, he is stronger.
He knock you back in? Oh no, you just went past me.
No, he just hits really hard. He's dead.
Nice. He dropped a bunch of stuff.
What'd he drop?
Here, take these. How do you drop them?
What the fuck is that? Oh, crystal shard.
Drop them.
Let's go look for some chests. Found one. Iron
Inventory's
ore,
completely full.
thorium ingot, copper chest plate, medium leather.
You
Oh,
get all the nice armor.
all right, let's go build a house, or as they would call it in some circles, a Cribbington. By some circles, I mean me.
Just you.
Alright, just me. I don't think we're digging up the stairs.
No, we are though.
Are we? Oh yeah, we are. No, we're not. There you
Not
go.
in the right spot. Okay.
Yeah, we're way off, man. We're out by a little bit. What the fuck are those? No, look over there. The flying fucking things.
Saber-tooth. I think that. Oh, I don't even know what those are.
Oh, we need to build quick.
Here,
We
let's
need to
go-
build to survive the
Let's go
night.
this way. Let's go this way. Let's get a little more into the desert here.
Build to survive the night.
A crab?
I know someone would.
Hmm. Anything cool on the map?
Have any cool?
I don't think so. This is area over here. I don't know if there's anything in there. Check it out.
Come on.
Well, hold on. This could be a peak area.
Hold up. I gotta get up. Okay. Apparently you can't climb up 2 blocks anymore.
Pretty sure you can.
For some reason I can't with the redwood.
Hold jump.
There we go.
Hold
That
your
worked.
jump.
I'm here. Holy
That cool?
fuck.
Alright.
We can build a wild ass bridge here. Picture this. Right there. Right in front of us. See where I'm looking?
Yep.
Walmart Supercenter. Huh?
Yo, we'll talk about that later. We'll come back to that one. We'll come back to that one.
Right here. Right here. Chipotle.
Right here. Chipotle. We'll get back to that.
Where it's
We'll
$40
put that in the books.
for a side of guac. Oh. Oh. Right here. It's gonna be a good
It's right
one.
there.
An ice field off.
Oh, this guy. This guy. Oh, wait, hold on. I'm seeing a good flat piece of flat land over here.
Oh! Right here.
What's that?
Costco.
Costco.
Yeah, you know what?
Costco.
Scrap the ice office. Big booty Latina shopping mall. And a goth
Now
chick
that I can get
Hooters.
behind. Well, not. Well, hold on now.
A femboy Hooters.
No, that's all you, bro. That's all you.
Come on. You don't want a femboy Hooters.
No.
Alright. It's alright, man. They're not bad. Where the fuck did you go? There you are.
Here, go across. Go across.
Yo, there's fish in the water.
Oh, you can kill him.
Oh no. I'm a pescavegarian or whatever they call themselves nowadays. I'm vegan for the content. What the fuck are those things? Yeah, you guys are dying. What's good, Antelope? Yeah, dude. You gotta do things for the content. What femboys? Curtis. Be specific. No.
He actually?
No, he's not. It's for the content that we say he's a femboy. For the money.
Bro, I gotta get on the OnlyFans, bro.
Exactly. Oh shit, I'm gonna die. Oh, someone just blew a horn.
I did not hear a horn. What is this thing?
It's hyena.
Ooh, oh, hell no, no.
He's a little strong.
He did hella damage.
Okay, we actually need to find a place to settle.
If we keep walking this way, I believe we'll find. Whoa, we found something.
Why the fuck is he running away?
Oh my god, dog. Oh hell no, hell no.
Oh, you're getting tag team.
Gotta eat. Yeah, just give me a second. I'm gonna eat real quick.
All right, two down, two down.
You
We're
got
down.
that, you got that. Oh, nice, nice.
They're all KIA. 79%. Fuck. 79% until I have to string for 24 hours.
What does that mean?
So I have a channel point goal right now. If they get 100,000 channel points together, I have to stream for 24 hours.
Put all mine in there.
And they're at 79%, so
And now it's 80.
fuck. I have to stream for 24 hours.
This should be no light work, bro.
Low key. It will be. I'm Himothy. I'm Himothy Shamalit.
Let's not go too far.
Here? Oh. 20,000 channel points to go. Yeah, I know for a fact you guys will pull together. I give it like another few days and it's gonna happen. We need to find a place to live, man.
No, we're getting there. We just gotta keep going that way.
Alright?
Yeah.
Lead the way. I need food.
Here, I got you.
Oh, thank you. Cooking meat the second we find a good place.
I'm seeing a big mountain. And behind this mountain, it's gonna be the most beautiful piece of scenery you've ever seen in any game. Alright.
And I already know how to make it even better. Hey, look, another building. Let's go discuss with the local population about their eviction notice. Hello, local population.
Let's
Here's your
go there a
eviction
little bit.
notice. Oh, try again. Fuck. Oh, let's go up. There's a bed up here if you want it.
Just take it.
I already have one.
Okay. Didn't know you had one. Okay.
Yeah,
I
that's-
see.
There's a crude
Nice
mace.
bed.
There's a crude mace in here if you want it.
Why do they have such nice beds in here?
Oh, you know, decorations. This actually used to be my
Okay.
house back in the day.
Oh really? Oh, really?
Yeah, back in 81.
Oh, the sky looks weird moving. Oh. Looks
Make you
weird.
sick.
No, it just looks garbage. Actually.
Oh my god, yeah, it does.
I'm feeling like right down here in this mountain range. Feels
Oh,
cozy.
yep. I know exactly what to build here.
No femboy hooters.
Oh, even better. Sam's
Uh-huh.
Club.
Sam's Club.
No? I don't think it's on the better.
I've never been to Sam's Club. I wouldn't know.
Oh, right there. Right where I'm looking. Planned Parenthood.
Okay.
Gonna get burnt down or shut down in like 25 minutes. But at least we thought about it.
How do you, okay, here, I'm gonna craft this. And we're just gonna make a little mountain base real quick.
I'm gonna make a campfire. I have charcoal in here. I'm gonna use that to cook food. Put in all your raw wild meat in here.
Give me a second. I can make a little makeshift shelter for now before we build a house.
A nice little Cribbington.
Okay, I have 4 pieces of meat. Where's the where?
Right. See it. I have charcoal in there. Obviously, charcoal's not
Yeah.
gonna last long. Hold up. Clear my inventory real quick. I have stuff that we're not gonna need. This.
Ooh, wait.
What's up?
I'm about to change my keybind real quick.
Oh.
I made it right click to open things, but
Hi.
well, cause you know, I'm back on F though. How do you split your things in your inventory? What you
That's a good
Right.
question. I'm inside.
Right.
Right here.
Okay. Take your meat.
Thank you. I love meat. Might have to build this up one.
Yeah, just yeah.
Pull up. Solidify the side here.
Nice.
Need to put a door.
So you can make a door. Can I make a door? No, because I need to make a. What do you call it? Which one is it?
Oh, the builder's bench there.
Is it the furniture bench or the?
I think it's the builder's workshop. Oh. It's this one here. It's this one here. I made a door.
Oh, that just. Okay. Might be a little scuffed. Here, alright. Here, give it to me real quick. Give it to me real quick.
Nope.
Oh, it places like in the middle of the block.
Yeah.
Oh, just have it like that.
Hell yeah, this is secure.
Whether put a no, that works. Yeah.
Secure, no opposition will come in. Don't get
Yep.
ambushed in the middle of the night.
Farmer's workbench, builder's workbench. Okay, the bed. Will this work? Let's see. This is a. How do I place the bed? Oh, these beds are huge, dog.
It's fine. It's fine, man.
Boom. Well, don't put your bed there. Here, mind this. Mind this out. Real quick.
Ba-ba-ba-ba-do.
I didn't put mine far back enough. Boom. Perfect. That works.
Oh.
Moving it.
Boom. Hell yeah! Now we just need a torch in here. Boom.
Hell yeah. Interact confirmed. I have a bed now. Do you want to put everything inside? I was thinking we just leave the workbenches out here, low key.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just do
Oh, I
this.
see what you're doing.
Boom.
Then we could also do this. I just got a notification.
Oh? You owe us $100 billion. All good, bro?
What? Yeah. What? Oh, okay, you did that.
Yep.
Nice.
Solidify.
It feels nice in here.
Solidify. It's gonna be nice and warm. Type shit. Trying to reach you about your car insurance. Ah, yes, probably that is notification buddy got.
Ban him.
Give him the death penalty. Remove the testicles. I just made a furnace. It's not in my inventory. Fuck.
Should be in your inventory.
Oh, I
If you-
closed
if
it
you
out as it
leave-
was building. Yep. I
Yeah.
didn't realize.
Just shake.
Right here.
That's a terrible spot. Okay.
Move it. Move it. Move it.
Alright, sure.
I don't know where to put it.
There's some dirt. Oh, crap.
I'll cut down a tree to make some charcoal.
Alright.
Question is, are we gonna use oak? There's no oak nearby. It's just ash logs around here.
That's what we're using.
All right, so I'll turn the oak into coal then.
Yeah. Put mine in there too. Ooh, well, I could get a little fancy here with it. Hold on.
Oh fuck yes. Hold up.
Oh, I broke it. Oops.
This fucking
Put that back
guy.
in.
This fucking guy. I can make a roof.
A roof?
Yeah.
Oh, for what?
Hold up, you'll see.
Oh, boom. And what'd you put in there? What were you picking up?
Iron and copper.
How much?
All of it.
How much did you put in?
I had 4.
I can't. Oh. Take half. It closes my inventory when I try to take half.
Why not just make all of it now?
Yeah, I guess. So.
The more we put in, we'll be able to make copper.
I'm gonna need 2 more.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Fuck yes, dude. That bitch look clean. Try to make someone you don't like disappear, eat their ideas. Joke. There's something else you can do, but I legally cannot tell you what it is. Ender.
What can I make with iron right now?
Stuff.
Oh, I forgot you need light leather and all that.
Oh, I have leather. We just need to make a tanner.
I have a bunch of heavy and medium, and like I have 2 light.
Where's the tanning thing?
They're there.
I need more. I need 2 more light. How much light do you have?
2 more.
Fuck. Well, together we have 2. Oh, we have a home.
Did you make it?
No, I'm missing 1. Oh no, I have 3. Hold up, hold up, hold up. My God, I'm stupid.
Switching the order to instead of iron, we're gonna do all the copper first. We should be able to both have. Let's see. Wait, do we have the? We need to make the other workbench real quick, which is called the. What is it? The blacksmith workbench. We
Yes.
need another copper ingot and some wood.
I have wood.
Well, get this iron out of here. I don't want to smell the iron.
I'll cut down some trees. We need saplings though. Do remember we have to craft saplings?
I don't know how saplings work. Are there even saplings in the game?
I'd assume so. Yes, I remember when I was playing on my own in the farmer's bench. We have to craft them though. I'm gonna make a farmer's workbench real quick.
Ooh, 4 copper, 6 copper. Ooh, that's not good at all.
We can go mining.
Or we could, yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say.
Okay, so
Go mining.
each sapling is 28 life essence. We need to make the to make birch. It's a level 3, a tier 3. To make apples, a tier 4. To make spruce oak, it's a level 4. 6. Yeah, we're gonna grind this out. My God. I'm gonna make more chests.
Yeah.
I'm gonna empty out my inventory real quick.
Who's messaging me?
Tell them to die. Alright, let's go find a mine.
Yeah. Where is that you?
That's me.
Where is you?
Chop
Tell.
down some plant fiber. Fuck you, me, you can
Hold
tell.
on. Well, I don't have my zoom. You know, I'll have to find zoom.
His motherfucker.
Got a torch?
I do.
It's a dead end anyway. Don't even come down.
Well, let's go back to the crib.
It's getting a little dark.
Get back up here. I think there's a closer mine that's like actually proper.
Yeah.
Let me just make a few of these. Okay. I have 47 torches. Make another axe. Alright. Go exploring. Oh, make sure to mark this place. Yeah.
Should if you have your
Yeah.
bed set.
There's like a mine over here, or like a hole somewhere around here.
Hmm.
If I remember well. Right here. It's a dead end.
Is it?
Yep, taking my torch back.
Hold on, there's some copper here.
Oh, is there? Oh, I didn't even see the fucking copper. I'm a blind ass motherfucker.
Gotta use those eyes, bruh.
I'll pull them out and put them back in. Give me 5 minutes.
Oh, right here. You didn't even see this, did you?
Nope.
I didn't make a new pickaxe. Shoot.
Come here.
Oh, thanks.
Welcome.
Nice.
Oh, this one goes deep. What's up, goblin? Hello, goblin. Excuse me, goblin.
Wow. Oh my god, he's boxing me up.
I'm a roll.
Oh, he hit me. Everyone?
Don't let him live. There's a rat.
Get off me, little rascal.
Lit.
Copper sword.
I found one actually.
Oh, cool.
Oh god.
Anything down there? I'm coming down.
There's a little. Oh, copper.
I think the deeper we go, the scarier it's gonna get. So
It's okay.
the harder, I guess.
Don't be scared.
I'm feeling pretty scared.
Just think back to medical
What did I just
bills.
find? I found thorium ore.
Pick that shit up.
My pickaxe broke. Okay.
The one I just gave you?
No.
I was about to say, god damn, that bitch broke fast.
There's more up there. I gotta get up in there.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. That's a big snake. The reason I hate my state, fuck ass protesters. Real. Oh, I picked up a snake's testicles.
Oh hell yeah. Your favorite, huh?
Snake testicles? No.
Did you go down the desert looking
Yep,
tunnel?
I did.
Oh, you're still in there.
Yeah, I just found some thorium as well. No.
Oh, I do have a torch. Nice. Raw dogging it down here.
I'm coming. Just collecting. Low key thugging it. Low key thugging it. Low key thugging it. Shut up, Snake. Low key thugging it. Ugh.
Is that in now? Alright.
Yep.
What you got so far? I got like five iron.
Check. 5 copper, 1 iron, 5 thorium. Good haul. Say we keep exploring though.
Not done yet.
Oh, you're.
You take a bunch of farther?
Huh?
Oh my, I can't speak. What's down there?
Yeah, I did. I went down like to the left.
Yeah.
So far, I found iron.
Can't even get through.
There's a little. Hold up, welcome back.
I got you. I got this. Ooh, oh hell no. There's some lava. We're getting into like the Terraria, whatever it's called.
At least we're not in the basalt. Definitely get. Holy shit! It's the Nether. What?
I haven't been down here a lot, so we might get cooked.
Fine.
I don't know what's down here.
I have a strat.
You have a strat.
That's called not dying.
Wow, that's a good strat, man.
I almost died.
I've never thought about that.
Oh, welcome.
What's this rock?
Oh, I found more iron.
Oh, it's just volcanic cobble. In one of the zones, if you go underground, there's like a whole underground like dinosaur civilization, and it looks like all mysticals.
Lizard people are real in this game?
No, it's like dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs are just giant lizards.
Not people. Not lizard people. There's a difference.
We need lizard people. Make lizard people real. I don't have any fucking plant fiber. Fuck.
Oh, you missed a thorium.
Thorium for what?
I don't know what. I think it's for armor, isn't it?
I think so. Oh, hey.
Or you need it for upgrading at least. You need it for upgrading your stuff. Should've brought some fiber with me.
E2 right now. Is this pick that I have is about to break.
I'm about halfway on mine.
We're gonna have to find like an exit.
I have to dig it with our hands, dude.
It's gonna take us 600 billion years.
Oh hell no! Oh. What's that here? Oh shoot, dog! Oh my god! 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 Okay. The snake does unreasonably amount of damage.
Meat skewer, copper pickaxe. There you go.
Give me that meat.
Come here.
Like a finger? What is that? You could take the chest.
Let's take them. They look cool. I like cool looking things.
Oh yeah, we're getting a bunch of stuff now.
I'm gonna take
There's
these
some stuff over here too.
small wild temple chests.
Oh, if you step on these orange mushrooms, they will blow you up. I believe.
I know what I'm doing. Okay.
Oh, you should test it though.
Oh God!
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It works.
Explode!
It works. Oh, holy, holy, holy.
The holy of all holies.
Oh, that's a lot.
All right, now we have to find a house and strip it of its copper wiring.
Turn around, go back to where you went.
Oh, found copper. Copper is something we need.
Oh, look at this.
So what? Iron. Where the fuck are the diamonds, man?
Are they even diamond in this game?
I want diamond ore. Diamond armor. I don't know. This is the deepest I've been in a mine.
Me too.
It's a dead end right here.
You're not gonna get the rest of this copper over here?
I just want to see what's down here first.
Okay.
Fucking glowing green up.
You have ads on your stream?
Wait, what?
You have ads on your stream?
Oh? Thought I turned those off.
I just got an ad.
It's probably Twitch. I know Twitch forces ads after a while.
So how'd you get ads? Like,
I'm
did you get,
monetized.
like 5 people? Yeah, how'd you get that? How? Like,
Are you not monetized on Twitch?
oh?
Oh. So we'll go through it. I know you need to have like 3 viewers consecutively for like 4 streams or something like that.
Okay, and that's the problem I have.
I got really lucky playing Sons of the Forest. Telling you, bro, stream with us one night and we should be chilling.
Where am I? Are you down there or did you go up?
I'm still down here. I went a little bit lower. Found a copper vein and I'm following it. What?
You're like behind a wall.
Yeah.
Did you go back? Did you go up and around?
Hold up. I'll come.
Hold on, I just found something too.
Oh. Hold up. Fuck are you? Oh, you're a rat.
Oh, well, here you are.
I'm finding the ops. Oh, these are
Big rat.
moles.
Ah.
Yeah,
Oh,
they're
yeah, that's not a rat.
moles.
They got mole. Okay, no, I did get a tail from it.
Technically, it wouldn't be wrong to call them rats. I believe they're in the same family. Yeah, but
Oh,
I got
hell no, what is that? What is that?
where?
Hold on, there's a rat and something else down there. I want to heal up. Here, like down here, There's something down there. Got some goblins.
Why is he on fire?
Oh, shoot. Question: why is he on fire?
Oh.
Oh, I did not mean to do that. I didn't do that.
Oh fuck! One of them's throwing bombs.
Let's just kill him.
Oh, he's dead.
Is he gonna explode?
No, but he threw a bomb, but that hasn't exploded yet.
Oh, I don't like that. I'm hitting it. Okay, whatever.
I'm gonna take his campfire. Bombadillo crocodilo. My inventory's trying to get full. What about you?
It's got some slots left.
I say we keep going. Hey, we've collected a lot of ore though, so this is good.
What you got? How much? What you got?
I'll give you a count in a second. I've got
20.
29 iron, 25 plus 11, so 36 copper. Second.
Oh, my pickaxe just broke. But you can still technically use it.
It's just terrible. Wait, hold up. I can make you one. I apparently have plant fiber.
Dude, my friend's DMing me. He literally just said pause the Hytale game.
Oh.
Let's go. Let's go.
Where you at? Come here.
I'm right here.
Here you go. 2 of them.
I need to empty my inventory real quick. Make a hole here. Throw some stuff.
Crocodillo. Keep hiding. Oh fuck.
Oh. Is he in the hole?
No, he's gone.
Where'd he go?
Fucking disappeared. What a class act. Now, why would your friend say such a blasphemous fucking thing? Tell your friend to take a fucking hike.
It's about that one server.
Oh? Got more important pressing things to do right now.
Not until 6 p.m. No.
Oh god, what's happening at 6 p.m.?
We're gonna do. I think we're raiding somebody.
That's a fucking win right there. You know what the number one rule of raiding?
What?
Kill everyone. You know what no quarters means?
You think if I hit you, then you die?
Yes. Fucking
try
do
it.
it. Fucking do it, pussy. Do it!
Alright, here.
Oh, fuck! Nope.
Oh, you're good.
Close, though.
You think I die if I fall though?
Yes. What the fuck is that thing?
What?
I found the opposition and I have no food. Right in front of us. Right in front of us. This guy?
Oh, he looks big.
This can
Is
make
this where we die?
this could make a good clip, bro. Let's clip farm.
Is this where we die?
This is where we clip farm and die. Hold up, hold up, hold up, back. I got a grenade!
Somebody in there.
Grenade out!
Throw it, throw it.
Never mind, I'm gonna throw it.
Oh,
Come on, die for the clip, bitch! I need his death for the clip. Come on, guy. Do me a favor. There we go. Alright, we just clip farm this guy. Clip farm this guy. Let's go.
Dance on him, dance on him.
By the way, to make a good clip farm, you gotta announce that you're clip farming. Clip farming! So you let everyone know that you're doing it for the clip. Do it for the Vine head ass type of comment. Other guys, I'm streaming live on Pornhub right now.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yup, streaming live. I'm cam girling.
This guy.
What the fuck is that thing?
What?
There's another one.
Good question. I don't know. That's like a whole different thing. He's
Yeah.
coming over here. He's coming. He's coming. He's coming. Oh, he's an idiot.
Oh, God!
He's an idiot. He might be a little
Oh
bit
god,
weird.
I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. I'm so fucked.
He can't. He doesn't take damage from the lava.
Dude, I dropped so much stuff.
He died.
I died, yeah, I fell in the lava.
Dude, oh shoot! I'm getting out of here.
Oh wait, hold up, don't
Taking
go anywhere, I need my
Yep.
shit.
I picked up what I could.
There's more. We need all of it.
I left like maybe one thing in there.
What did you leave?
I think like a little bit of copper.
Ah, it's fine. We got a lot. I'll wait for you.
I know which direction is home.
Oh.
I just gotta make it out of here alive.
You got this, bro. Dig up.
Let's see who I am. What? Push F7. What is your in the feet chord? The middle feet chord. What's your feet chord?
But let me. 119.
119. I'm at 38, so I gotta go a ways.
You kind of go high. I'll make more food.
Do I nerd pull or just make a staircase? What's the strat?
Dirt pull. Dirt pull all the way. One of the most reliable strategies in the market. I'll make food. I got 6 on me, but better than nothing, right? So.
So let's see. We have 17 thorium, some silver, some gold, 25 iron ore, 25 copper.
I've already started to smelt some of it.
Oh yeah, and you have even more on you.
No, you picked everything. I dropped a lot of it.
Oh, but you still have some.
Yeah, I picked up what I got some of it, but you have all of it.
Okay.
You picked up,
Yeah.
so when you picked up my stuff that fell, you picked up what some of the stuff that dropped.
Yeah, which is about half.
Yeah.
It should be about half.
Yep. So you have a majority of it. Okay. Good haul.
I can doom scroll while I'm mining right now.
It's so real. It's so real. I'm putting down torches. There.
Hmm? What? Oh.
I put down some torches around the house.
Does that stop them spawning around?
Well, that's a good question. I have no fucking clue. I'd assume so.
I could so keep mining right now.
If you want.
Is a full stack 25? It is.
Yes.
Okay.
Flip the fight? Fuck yeah, Ender. Clip farming, buddy. Hear that, Ash? We're clip farming.
Oh yeah. I sure hope I'm not mining into a mountain right now.
So awkward. 1 second. Sorry about that. Ender. Put the clip there in the memes channel. Over from there. Thank you.
Well, if he clipped it, just go into your stream thing and find it in your clips.
Oh, that I did not.
Yeah, if you go to your let me just look here. Go to your you go to your creator dashboard, then you go to content and go clips.
It's all
And
there.
it should show the clip. It should show like who makes the clip too.
I'll grab that and I'll upload it. Still credit for my, obviously. Naturally, as a good content creator does.
Of course, of course.
A good content creator exploits his viewers.
The more I watch your stream, the more you get closer to a 24-hour stream.
Oh god. It's gonna if it completes this week there, it's gonna be on.
Have you run out of wood?
Yeah, we did. Chopping some down right now. Cut down a big fucking tree. I love deforestation.
Too.
I love deforestation. Deforestation is good. Fuck the environment, Loki. I want all the global warming.
Oh yeah.
I want the globe to be so goddamn hot. I can't bring myself. One thing, and this is something that comes from Minecraft too. When I see baby pigs with two, like, fully grown pigs, I can't kill them.
Really?
Nope, I don't know why. I feel bad for the pig.
Oh no, man! You need food. You need food.
I know, but you know, it's like I see the baby pig, and it's like I picture that, like, that's his parents. You know what I mean? It's like, damn.
I'm gonna go change that.
Huh?
What?
What you say?
Nothing. Nothing.
Ah.
I'm gonna walk over here real quick.
Yeah, that's why I fucking. Nah. Nah, you breezy. You're actually going towards where they were.
Oh, perfect! I found him. Here we go.
Jeez. Psycho, you fucking monster.
Ooh, look at that raw pork.
Oh,
Look at that raw pork.
you monster. What if that was your family?
You wanna guess how much raw pork we got?
How much?
3.
Fuck them pigs, bro.
Hey, where's the baby at? The baby ran off. Where'd it go?
Nah.
Be dead.
Nah.
There's a mine shaft right next to it. What the heck?
Yo, what the fuck did baby do to you?
Oh no, wait, there's a mine shaft. I don't care about the pig anymore.
What if it was the baby? You know, like the rapper?
Baby.
Yeah.
Uh,
Let's go. I say we need to come back. We're gonna make more tools and go exploring again.
we're gonna go in this cave here. I found.
Eat the baby? Ender, you crazy fuck. Let's go.
I
Should
think
we?
if you kill some animals that are babies in this game, they do drop something.
Oh, fuck the
see.
babies. Kill them.
Let me kill this one. I was wrong.
So in short, you just murdered a baby for no reason.
No, it's for science. It's for science. It's okay.
Oh, my bad. I didn't know you were Japanese during World War II. By the way, in
It's
case
for
you
science, it doesn't matter.
in case you don't know what I mean by that joke, the Japanese were well known for grabbing babies and dropping them 1 feet, 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet high to see how, like, the height to kill a baby.
That is insane.
The thing is, they did it with over 2,000 babies. Did they think the results were gonna be different every single fucking time?
You never know. You never know. You
Yeah,
never
they
know.
knew. They were just trying to find a way to kill as many babies as they fucking could, I guess. My god, dude, their free food is crazy.
Free food is crazy.
Oh my god. Hold up. Nah, 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 nah. I'm exposing you on Twitter, buddy.
Yeah, let's ban this guy.
Oh, let's give him VIP too. 4-2 dropping. I think Curtis will get a laugh out of that. I'm gonna ping him on that one. Curtis will get a laugh. Hold up. Curtis, check Quote's channel, buddy. Check Quote's channel. I don't have a Twitter account. Oh fuck, never mind, you're safe. You're safe from getting canceled, Ender.
Is that the cutoff? Just no Twitter account?
Curtis says, Jesus Christ, Ender. I'm gonna put all the ore like that's made in this chest. The small wind temple chest there.
Okay. I think we should just wait. Which one?
The small wind one.
The one you're at right now? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
We should just stock up on a bunch of copper armor real quick.
I
and
agree.
Just go coppered out.
Hold up. He just fucking doubled down. Hold up. Dude, he just fucking doubled down. Food is food. So, I was talking about how the Japanese used to, like, drop babies right from certain heights. Yeah, I know. I'm streaming too. And
Just making sure.
Ender just said free food to that. And then he just said food is food.
Oh, that's what it was.
He fucking doubled down. Alright, sorry. Yeah, I figured you're probably joking, but it's the fact that you said it twice with no fucking mercy. Alright, so there's 6 meat in here for you, by the way.
Yeah. We need a blacksmith anvil. I'm gonna make that real quick.
Alright. We have 52 iron ingots.
Oh shit, we already have one of those.
What?
Oops. We need the armor word.
English is
Okay,
hard, I got you.
We
Are you, dude? Did you not notice the campfire right here?
I heard a little bit. Sorry.
By the way, have you been inside the humble abode?
I have not.
You should go
I'm trying to figure out
explore.
where to put this. I'm gonna put it right here.
Yeah, we're gonna clean this up later. Count of vile things I've said 28. I want to see how much shit you can say in 365 days.
So,
If you say
Where'd you put-
something, I had.
I got some candles.
I know, right? Ain't that bitch fancy? This makes me want to play D&D.
Oh yeah.
I need to find people who want to play D&D. You know anyone who likes D&D?
Yeah, I'll play it.
If you have any friends that like D&D and are down to do a full D&D series?
I could probably find some people, but it's about being open and having a schedule more than playing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, we can make that shit work. If you know people who are down, let me know. I'll set it up. Curtis and Otter are not big D&D guys, so
I mean, that's fair.
they don't like fun
I
things.
understand it.
You know, they're pretty boring guys. I need to make. I need to decide what kind of weapon I want. I want daggers.
The daggers are probably the best in my opinion.
Yeah.
They do crazy damage.
Okay, I'll do copper.
Oh shoot, let me put the rest of this in here.
I just made a copper dagger and they're not in my inventory.
Or did you?
Yeah, I did. We had 4 copper and I used it. We had 5 copper and I used it to make daggers, and now I don't have daggers. What the freak?
Maybe. Oh, no, weird.
Yeah, no, they're gone. I haven't even had a chance to make armor yet.
You have armor, don't you?
I have 1 chest plate.
Oh.
We're chilling. We're gonna go cave exploring. But I am gonna make an iron pickaxe. We have quite a bit of iron. You want iron pickaxe?
Yeah. Do you have enough for that?
Yeah, oh fuck yeah, we do. Dude, we have 54 pieces of iron.
Yeah, but it's the leather. It's the leather that we need. We have 8 leather.
I can make 2.
Alright.
Rest of it, I'll just make copper. There you go. Come here.
Yep.
Go.
Nice.
Make some copper tools. Oh, I won't have enough to make copper pickaxes. Oh no, I'll
I
have
have
enough.
a copper pickaxe or stone and iron, just in case, you know.
I'll make 2 more iron pickaxes. So I'll make you one as well. So I have 2. And then I'm gonna make stone. I'm gonna make 10 stone pickaxes.
That's a lot. I don't think you'll need that much.
Okay, I made 4. Here's your copper pick. 2 more stone picks. All that's really missing now is torches. Torches. How many torches do you have?
1. I just hold it though. I don't replace it.
Oh, I'll probably place some.
You ready to go to that mine shaft?
And
What's your food looking like? I have 9.
I have 10.
Okay, that's good.
Alright, let's get to fucking mining.
I'm gonna move the iron that's in here into the thing. Alright, come on. Let's go this way.
Get a helmet at least. Okay, let's fucking go.
Let's go to the graveyard of the pigs over here.
Damn. By the way, I'm ordering Subway for dinner tonight. We're having tacos at my mom's tomorrow.
Wow.
So, I am gonna do something fucking wild. I'm gonna send a picture of it. It's like vibes. I'm gonna make a Subway sandwich with one of everything in it.
That's not bad. It's,
No.
I mean, it's kind of...
One of everything.
Yeah, like, all
One.
the oils and all that.
Oh, we don't have oils here.
Oh, you don't like you don't like when you go to Subway, you can't
There's
like
no-
put oil on it.
No, that's an American thing.
Really? Interesting.
Keep in mind, Canada doesn't have a lot of Italian influence, right? So,
Yeah, but Subway, I feel like Subway can't be that much different.
no, they're quite different. The UK, they have corn.
Well, that's just weird. But
Yeah, they put sweet corn in their sandwiches in UK. Here we don't.
it's like messed up.
We have
What,
guacamole.
corn?
We have guacamole and a regular avocado here.
Guacamole
Oh.
in your Subway? That sounds amazing.
It's very good. I
Yeah.
realize now I haven't had anything to eat. Just talking about it, I'm getting
Random
hungry.
Pizza rolls.
I haven't had a chance to eat.
Hold on, I'm seeing some purple in here.
I'm coming.
What is this?
I have a dental abscess at the moment, so I'm pretty cautious about what I eat. Fuck, I'm gonna die.
What? How you gonna die?
Got ambushed.
Where are you? Let's see.
I'm where we actually dropped down to get to where we ended up going.
I see you.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah, you
wizard
have a
right
little
behind
bit.
you. There you go. Dead now.
Are we
There's-
seeing this? Okay, never mind.
He's dead. Oh fuck!
Oh.
I fucking died.
by a little rat.
Yeah, I'm
By a
coming
little
back.
rat.
Coming back.
It's crazy. A rat.
Not dying in the hands of a rat. I'm not gonna be insulted like that.
Can't take that.
No. Killing everyone. I'm killing his entire family. I'm killing that rat's
I don't
entire
know what
fucking.
it was. It was like a
idiot.
weird, like, white thing.
That's how a silverfish actually looks like.
Yeah, what's that silverfish though?
That's how silverfishes are meant to look like.
No, but it wasn't a silverfish.
What killed me was the silverfish.
No, no, it didn't say. Did it say silverfish?
No, but that's how a silverfish actually looks like. I don't know what the fuck
Oh, whatever.
that critter's called.
Whatever.
What the fuck is my shit?
But you just go up.
I blame
You
the
died
Obama
up.
administration for my death.
Oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god.
I'm coming, I'm coming.
I'm good. I'm not like dying yet, but I found a spider's den.
Oh, I have all my spiders
And there's
turned into crabs.
It's like a bunch of like spider nests down there. Hell no.
I think you can carry down there, right? You'll be fine.
Hell no. Where are you? Did you get your stuff?
Yeah, I did. Just found some copper.
Yeah, let's go down this way. Let's go down this way.
Are we dead ass right, Meow?
Oh, you seeing this right here? You see this right here?
I don't want to fucking go down there.
Yeah, hell no, bro.
I already reached my limit by turning them into crabs, alright? There's
Oh,
another
you're a real
game.
Man, you gotta have them with spiders, man.
I can't. I physically cannot. I get sick. Spiders, out of everything in the world to be scared of, spiders are the one thing that I cannot tolerate.
Yeah, I don't like spiders either, but I can deal with them in game. But in real life,
Minecraft is the only game.
Like in real life, I'm like on a table. I'm like, dude, I'll bomb this place.
Oh, dude, I saw a daddy long leg recently. I contemplated arson. The thing though, daddy long legs are among some of the deadliest spiders. If they could actually bite us properly, their venom is extremely toxic. But because their fangs are so short, they can't like reach our blood vessels. You know something wild though about black widows here in Canada?
Hmm.
It's such a bad infestation that we have to call the police to find one.
What, really?
Well, if you find one, there's probably 3 more around, right? And you find those 3, there's probably another 3 somewhere else. One black widow in your house, you probably have like 20.
What is that? 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 Oh
That's
my
a
God, what is that?
frog.
Oh god.
Oh, it's a toad. It's a toad.
It's licking me. It's licking me.
I'm hitting it from the back. I'm hitting it from the back.
I'm healing a little bit.
All right, I hit it from the back. He's dead.
Dude, it was diddling me.
Without me?
This guy- Yeah.
Motherfucker. You know you're supposed to invite me to this shit, right?
We have a whole big, giving the big guy in the middle here.
I'm the diddler in the roof. Yo, let's go fuck him up. Let's go bend him over.
Oh god.
I'm hitting him from the back.
Oh yeah, he's probably dead. That was easy. Oh no. Oh.
Oh, you're gonna fucking die. Eat, 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 eat.
I'm chilling. I might eat some raw.
Go raw.
I think it's okay to eat the raw.
You're going carnivore right now, bro. You're doing the carnivore diet. Now you just need to create a new YouTube channel where you have a podcast that has 5 viewers, and you have to take out a high loan just to get the Shure mic.
SMB, the SMB 7.
Yep. You have to go into like severe financial debt for that.
How much is that? Like,
That mic alone? Oh, for 2?
Yeah.
Like 2 grand.
oh hell no.
Keep in mind, most of these guys are buying the podcast set, which is like alone like $4,000 or $5,000. And I know for a fact most of them can't actually afford it, so they take out loans to be able to buy it.
I got a fee fine mic. I think it sounds pretty good, right?
You got a what?
A fee fine.
Yeah. Yeah, they're pretty good actually. What the fuck is that
Mine
thing?
sound good?
Does. How does mine?
Good.
Good.
What would you see?
Oh, we already found one of these. It's a
Oh, these
fire.
little things. Ankles.
Yeah.
This guy fell in the lava. Yeah. What is that? I can't even see what I'm trying to fight. Yeah, well,
Whatever the fuck it was, just dropped cloth.
that's interesting. Ow. Ow.
You might want to
Those
eat,
hurt.
motherfucker. I want to
Those
eat.
hurt.
I want to eat, you sick son bitch.
I'm
Okay,
on that.
here's the order. Okay, multi-grain, double meat, extra cheese.
Okay.
Okay, hold up. Still going.
Let me
Stuffing,
get
beans and corn,
stuffing.
bacon.
Wait. Stuffing. Stuffing.
Yeah, it was part of their like Thanksgiving thing.
Oh hell.
Extra lettuce,
Okay.
extra tomatoes, extra cucumbers, extra pickles, extra green peppers, extra black olives, extra onions,
This sounds
crispy
impossible
onions.
to eat.
It's gonna be terrible. Now for the sauces: festive gravy, bourbon barbecue sauce, piri piri sauce, Nashville style hot sauce, mayonnaise, mustard, smoky honey mustard, chipotle, chipotle Southwest, sweet onion teriyaki sauce, garlic aioli, peppercorn ranch, salt, pepper, and grated Parmesan.
You know what?
It's gonna be $38.
Minus the
It's
gravy doesn't sound that bad.
gonna be $38.
This would be a good time for you to have a camera. This would be a good clip, man.
God, dude, I'm so cooked. 38 fucking dollars for a sandwich. It's fucking diabolical.
That's, I mean, you're getting the whole menu.
I'm like basically robbing them at this point.
I have a not Subway, but a good sense right next to my apartment.
Right.
And it's so nice having it there.
Oh god, what is the weird obsession randomly now with restaurants doing protein menus?
You know, protein.
Yeah, but like, oh, and they also have like protein counts. Fresh fit rotisserie style chicken, 30 grams of protein. Why are you having to tell me the protein count? Who's asking you to do this? It's like every company suddenly heard that everyone's like into their macros and knowing what their protein count is, and then, you know, started putting it on there. Which is true. I mean, I do check my protein a lot, actually.
I just eat whatever, man.
I max out on protein.
Protein maxing.
Yeah. Bit of a workout nerd.
Do you bench?
I do not know.
Oh. What do you do?
It's weights, but I don't bench.
Like, so, like, do you, you curl?
Yeah, I bet.
How much do you curl?
190.
Damn. Damn. Damn.
I need to get those numbers up now.
That's crazy, though.
Oh fuck, the frog's gonna kill me.
Hey, stop looking. Oh, Bill, just
I
walk
died.
away. Just walk away. Okay.
I died.
Stuff.
Fuck ass frog. Come back.
Oh shoot. Oh shoot, dog. Oh shoot.
Don't die. You
Hey,
die?
So.
We're going
What
back.
just happened?
We're going back. We're going back.
What day is that on? Day 2?
Yeah.
I got an idea. I'm gonna go right above my marker. I'm just gonna mine straight down.
Fuck.
What's the worst that could happen?
Well, this is a Minecraft, so we might be fine. I'm mining again. I don't know what.
I'm gonna get my copper pickaxe out for this. I'm gonna start
That's-
mining down.
I'm gonna start a TikTok to where it's just dedicated to me.
Oh yeah, that's good, yeah.
I'll show my face, bro.
Just puff up and do it.
No face, no case.
I guess you can do that without showing your face.
Yeah.
It's
I
possible.
have to wear a shiesty.
No, you just don't put your face in the frame and be like all mysterious. And put,
Actually, after the 24-hour goal, and I'm gonna put this out there right now because I know these freaks are fucking listening. I'm gonna put out another channel goal for another 100,000. If they hit the 100,000, I'm gonna have a face cam. But I have to wear a shiesty. I gotta be all mysterious and hood-like.
Are you white?
Yeah, I am. I am. Actually, I was born in a rich neighborhood as well.
You should get one of the fuzzy ones. The fuzzy shiesties.
Ah, no. I want everyone to think about it. Spin on the odds, bro.
Did you get to the loot yet?
Not yet, no.
Alright.
Does it despawn?
It might.
Fuck. The only
It
gang
shouldn't take
sign.
that long though.
The only gang sign I throw up is a 3. As for grade 5-9, bitch. The Suicide Boys is where music is at. Okay, I'm in the spider den right now. I went the wrong fucking way. I hear you.
How far down do you think we are?
Pretty far down. I hear you digging.
Oh, I'm right on it.
I don't even know
Yeah,
which
I'm right on
fucking way we went.
Just go, well, no, you go, turn around.
Yeah?
Look at the map and walk to your waypoint. Walk to your death point on the map and just dig down. Like, yeah, just like dig down. Like you're not like above it yet.
No, but I'm close enough.
Um, you're like the opposite direction of it.
Oh, fuck me. Why did it fucking seem like I was right on it?
I don't know where you're gonna fall. Where's this guy going?
Right on it. Yeah, no, this is the only way I'm gonna do it. I can put on the shiesty. Oh hey, iron. Ugh. Fighting down break. We need some iron. How's it going down there? Is our stuff gone?
Oh no, your stuff is still there. I'm just watching at this point.
Let me get this
I hear
iron.
you.
I'm gonna be
Yeah,
mad if
right
I'm near
there.
the lava. I can
Just
see.
keep going down. Just keep going.
Oh,
down.
there, I found it. Oh, dude, if I kept digging, I would have fell into the lava.
Why did you just go right above your waypoint? I said this.
I was.
No, you were not. You weren't.
Don't
You
worry about
died
it.
right there.
Don't
and
worry
you
about it.
mined out over there.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I'm good at math, bro. 1 + 9,
Well-
7.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
6, 7.
Yeah, you got that. Yeah.
Eh. One of the greatest mathematicians in the market.
Hey, we got a big boy over here.
Oh, God, who the fuck is this guy? Sir, please. Sir, please. Sir, please.
Nice.
Fucking dead. Was that a fucking iron golem?
Another one?
There is a hole right here that goes down deeper. And there's a piece of iron that fell down. That
Who's
was
down there? Should I come down?
goes deeper. It's really all there is. Oh yeah, there's golems down here. Oh my god, there's a fucking bomber.
Oh, I took some damage.
He's dead because he fucking blew me up. Oh god.
Hey. Okay, he's dead. He's dead. He's dead. Oh, not the frog. Not the frog.
Are you dead ass?
Hold on. Heal up. Heal up. Heal up. Heal up.
Oh god, he pulled me. Yep,
Oh,
he's aggroed on me.
oh.
There's 2 of them. There's fucking 2 of them.
There's 2 of them.
Yeah, and I don't have any more food.
No.
I have raw food actually.
Yeah, you gotta go raw, bro. The movement with these daggers are kind of low-key mid sometimes. Or I'm just bad. I don't know how to use them. Got a bomber?
Yeah, he's dead.
Man.
Bombadillo crocodilo.
Anything in there?
No,
Oh, it's a dead end. Okay.
you fucking going.
Iron.
Let's skip the ops though. Yeah, I used to have this exact problem with ops in real life, bro. You know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude, daily. You know, I used to spin the block back in the day.
Oh yeah, you're in the rich neighborhood.
Huh?
In the rich neighborhood?
Yep. I also fucking die.
Yeah. Right in front of the guy. I'm about to take some of your stuff.
That's fine. I'm coming down. Yeah, dude. I had some of the worst ops, man. They used to like tickle us. That's crazy.
Was your uncle?
Oh, how did you know?
Just educated guess, you know.
Yeah, dude, my uncle used to be the biggest op I had in the market. He used to spin a shit. Alright, I need to stop. I'm cringing just fucking doing that. And dude, I had so many problems with my ops, man. Oh, who are your ops? Oh, you know, the police. Oh, why is there cops in your neighborhood? Oh, you know, 'cause I live in the suburbs. They're there protecting you, you know? Someone who didn't look right came by and they showed up. Isn't lore accurate for suburbs?
Maybe.
I
No,
live-
I don't know.
I lived in the Canadian suburbs. Didn't really matter. They would call the cops even on people that knew lived there. I think that, no, I think about it. I think like old rich white men used to call the cops even on people that they knew lived there so that they wouldn't look. We all knew who they wanted to fucking call it on. Let's be fucking honest here. Yeah, no. Old white women call the cops on everyone they saw walking into the neighborhood. Like, not everyone is here to rob us, you know? Home invasions are not really a thing. Yes, they exist, but you know, like they're not common. Now I'm the proud, soon to be technically legally the proud owner of a church. I'm calling the cops every time I hear a fucking noise. Motherfucker, wake up! We still got 2 hours to go.
2 hours.
Only been 2 hours and 1 minute.
Oh, wait.
I say to conclude today's stream of Hytale, we at least build a house. Or the start, a base of one.
Yeah, start a foundation.
Exactly. We mine a little bit more, then we come back up to the surface and start plotting a humble abode. Oh, fuck. You watch my shit?
Oh yeah, nah. Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah? Ah, good.
Great POV right there.
Yeah, don't make me...
Is that a fucking frog?
Again?
Yeah, another one.
You know what? If you can,
Oh
grab...
my god.
Grab whatever you can from my stuff and try making your way up, you know?
Yeah, got you.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah, might be a good idea, you know? I don't know. Don't you fucking die. Don't you fucking die.
I'm good.
I haven't died yet.
I don't die. So like
Oh, really?
crazy to think that I would die.
Yo, sleep with one eye open tonight. Let me know if you die. Alright? Die, headass. Don't make me fucking kill you. In Minecraft, of course.
Of course.
Murder's
Yeah,
illegal.
line up again. Easy.
I'll just collect some more and then I'll come up.
I got 16, 25, 25, 18. Yeah, we got a haul.
Good. Fucking rich. Here's my copper pick. think I see you.
You see me?
Oh, sorry. Looked like I saw you running by. Actually, a rat. Like from a quick glance there, it looked like it was a person. You know
I
what?
just went into
Calling you a rat. Rat bitch.
this guy.
I have 26 copper. $26 copper ingot. Wang. Wake up.
I'm up. I'm up.
Wake up, Joe Biden. Wake up. Wake up, Joe Biden. That guy woke up Joe Biden. Wake off. Guy. Guy. Time. Ain't the time, right?
Almost there.
Joe Biden. Wake up. I found what seems to have been a... Oh, god damn it, that's a fucking... Oh, that's a crab. I know what you are. I know what you actually are, you sick son of a bitch. I know exactly what the fuck you are, you sick son of a bitch. You monster. Yeah, I know what the fuck you are, bitch. Yeah, stay down there, pussy. But tell me when I got creeped out by a spider. Oh my god. My health not good.
You gotta heal, bro.
I'm coming back up.
I'm at 128. I'm not out yet. This is crazy. I'm out. Oh, it's nighttime too.
Huh?
Where? It's nighttime. Why is that?
I said 119, right?
Yeah, it should. Well, that's where the house is. It could go up to like 130.
I don't know how, like, where exactly I'm out.
I see on the map. Damn, you're
Oh.
far. You're also in a mountain, I think.
Yep.
So, GG. What is that?
This is what?
It's huge. It got eyeballs.
Fuck. That's my op
It's
right
like
there.
It's like the one thing from Terraria. I'm getting in the house. You'll see it when you get here.
Almost there. I'm up the dirt.
You here yet?
I'm coming right now.
What is that thing?
Got to the surface.
It's huge.
Is it still there?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Oh, oh, oh.
Or I'll slide on it. What the?
It's got tentacles. It's got tentacles.
What the fuck are you?
Do you see it?
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
What is it?
Oh, it has no name. Void Eye.
God. Oh my god.
Found it.
He destroyed you.
Excuse me, sir. Please.
Heal up a little.
Sir, please. Oh god.
Dude,
Oh
he's
god.
destroying you. Oh, oh.
Oh, he's dead. He's dead.
Dude, he does so much damage. What is that? What was it?
It was something called a Void Eye. I don't know what it dropped, but it destroyed a lot of my shit.
Oh yeah, well I didn't actually have anything. I put everything in my chest, so I was like,
These guys look like predators, like from the
here,
movie.
here, you wanna sleep?
Yeah, let's
Sleep.
fucking sleep. Fucking sleep. God, I thought this was a safe neighborhood.
Not yet.
I knew we voted for the wrong congressman. Could have made a better choice. Alright, let's fucking do this.
Oh it's daytime though. Okay, cool. Hmm.
I've been awake since
How does one
7
how does
o'clock.
one breed animals? We can
Oh.
breed some animals. That'd be nice.
The way that I know is frowned upon in
Okay, well, how about with with the in-game way? In-game way.
I think we need like an
Well,
animal breeder.
Can we go fishing? Are there fishing rods? Seeing fish bait. I'm not seeing no fishing rods though.
I'm gonna put your oars in the ditch.
How much we got in there? Oh yeah, oh yeah. We just need. Well, we should go explore and just go kill a bunch of things and get a bunch of hide and meat.
I agree. Let me make a bow.
I have like a 57 arrows somehow.
I'll take those arrows if you don't want them.
No, I want them. I'll make a bow too, actually. I just do damage to you?
No, you push me out of the way.
Okay.
Alright, I have
We have a
104
hole where we
arrows.
can throw trash into.
I have 104 arrows.
I'm making a trash hole. So you got any trash? Throw it in here.
Let's look in our chest, see if there's anything we want to keep. Throw out.
Like a sword we can throw out. A scrap maze? That's kind of cool. Let me use that. Is it better?
That I'm unsure, but I found it, so.
It's got better rarity. I don't know if it's better damage though. But I guess it's right.
Alright, let's go fucking murdering. Murdering and pillaging.
We're gonna go this way. Right? No. There's snowplow outside my window there.
I don't have any snow outside.
Oh, that's a smart idea.
Welcome. Come back next Tuesday for more tips and tricks. You need a tutorial on how to breathe? Yo, I found an op.
Found another cave.
I found a bear.
I'm gonna Arthur Morgan it.
He's fucking running away. He's fucking running away.
Oh, hit that.
Don't forget to lead the shot. Don't forget to lead the shot, bro.
I blocked on that. I'm missing. Boom.
Pass away.
Oh.
Rob him, quick. Rob him. Okay.
Yeah, I
It's
got
been robbed.
meat and hide. Hold on, before we go anywhere, I saw something over here.
Yeah.
So it's another cave.
Oh god. I didn't bring any pickaxes.
I'm just gonna check it up. I'm just gonna check it out real quick. Just, you know, check if there's anything quick and easy to get in here. I see a chest. Yeah, so you could've. Or have to come back here another time.
Oh, the ops.
Yeah, we should just come back here later.
Yep. Just want to slime out the ops real quick. Let them know that we were here and we know about their territory.
I want to find some of those moss cows or mog
Is
swamps.
that pumpkins
whatever
down
they're
there?
called. It looks like it. Yeah.
Can we grow pumpkins?
I bet you can. Bet you can. Yeah, I bet you can.
Restores
Oh,
5%.
You see these right here? You see these right here? This little guy? This little
I don't
ugly
know.
thing?
Yes.
This drops how much? I got 7 raw meat from that guy.
Alright, let's fucking kill all of them. Fuck off, snake.
Insane. Kill it, man. Oh, 1 hit. Yeah, kill that thing. Kill it. And just attack it at this point.
Nah,
Give us
nah,
some
nah.
arrows. Is that crab right there?
That's a spider, actually. Yeah, it was a spider.
Did you get the meat?
I did. Crabs are not venomous.
What is that? I see something. Is that a saber-tooth lion? Good, thanks.
Go kill it.
No idea.
Hey, there's a tower right there we can go explore.
There it is.
And there's
Where-
antelopes.
let's go see
Oh,
this
fuck.
tower.
Hey, it's the ops. It's the desert, but ops are from the desert now.
I'm checking out this tower. I think it's low-key mid. There's a chest up here with some copper. A wooden shield. That's kind of big.
Better than no shield.
Do you want it? I don't. I use the daggers. So.
I have daggers. I'm gonna try those.
Ooh, I'm seeing a zone 4 up here.
You wanna go to it?
Yeah, come here.
Pull up.
Oh, did they drop food?
Antelopes? I don't know. I haven't killed one.
Oh. Come here, buddy.
Pretty fucking fast, though.
Alright.
Did he drop?
Light hide. They drop a light hide, which we need to make iron and stuff. So that would be nice to
Go kill them. There's a
come
bunch
back
over
and
there.
kill. Is there?
Well, so we need to make a farm.
Yeah. I know what these guys. These drop light hide. Nice. Medium hide.
Oh, there's thorium right there.
Oh wow. Out in the middle of nowhere. Mhm.
Run.
Man, I'm taking 9. Is that all of them?
Yes.
Alright, okay. I was
We got
covered.
8 light hide off of them.
Nice. Move. Okay. There we go. So I'm seeing a big location on the map.
Go to it.
I feel like we're gonna die. Was that a saber tooth? Antelope. Antelope?
One dead. Two dead. Oh, it's a saber tooth. I'm gonna kill it.
Nice.
Saber tooth became my enemy.
Oh,
Oh, there's another one.
Nice.
Climbed out, bitch.
Alright, let's go this way.
To zone 4.
I think this is what zone 4 is at least.
Oh, whatever's lava. Lean there.
Let's get some blocks so I can build up. Oh, died.
Oh, oh fuck! I fell.
Freaking like kind of climb this entire thing without having to build. All right.
Fuck!
What is that? A zombie? Hey yo!
Yeah. Lava zone has zombies. They're like kind of here to protect the entrance to the zone. I don't think they want us to actually come here.
Oh, too bad.
Devastated lands. Because the lands are devastated. Charred woodlands. Because the wood is charred. Fuck, I fell.
Oh. This guy. Can't be doing that here.
I think we need to make a quick campfire at some point.
Oh yeah, we could. Yeah, you got any sticks? Any rebel?
I don't know. Fuck. There are trees, though.
Are there?
Yeah.
There are. They're charred though.
Yeah, they still drop logs.
Yeah, but we need sticks, not logs.
I suspect we can still get log. Oh, give it a shot. Nope, no sticks.
You see any sticks? Okay.
Oh,
okay.
damn.
Let's keep looking around.
There is rubble, though.
And plant fiber.
Not what we need. Hey, there's a castle right here.
Could go in there.
Oh, what the fuck is that thing?
Good question. Ayo.
You fucking one-shotted me.
Yeah, I'll pick up your stuff. It'll be easier that way.
Yeah, I'll come right back. Just make a bit of armor. Oh, we don't have enough copper for armor. Fuck.
Fun.
Fuck.
I kind of want to go in a little deeper here. Does that guy have a gun?
I think some of them have muskets.
Yep.
Alright, I'm going back.
Oh my god, he's shooting me. He's shooting me.
Just dodge, bro.
They should really add a dodge mechanic.
Just dodge the bullets.
Give me that gun. Give me the gun. Tell me to drop the gun. Oh, dang it. I didn't. Sucks.
I say after we explore this a little bit more, we go back home and we build.
Shoot, we could just save this for another time and go back home now and start building.
I'm done. I'll be here.
Okay. I'll make my way over.
I just killed a member of the opposite class. As in, like,
oh
a poor
my
person.
God.
What?
Some thorium greaves.
Take them.
I'm wearing them now. I'm wearing them. I entered the castle for a second. I saw a big, huge monster. I am leaving.
Oh, that's a reasonable reaction.
And what is that? What are you? Okay, alright, let's get out of here. Oh, there are some trees of leaves. You just didn't see them.
There is. This is good.
You dying?
I am, yes.
To what?
Spider.
Come on, man.
I'd
Are there sharks?
assume so.
That's a big squid-looking thing. What are you? I think there's scuba gear in this too, so you can like go swimming down and see what's up.
Get back over here. Get over here. I got a wife and 7 kids. Oh. Our fire's out of fire.
Oh man.
Someone add some more goddamn fire to the fire. I need to make a farm at some point. How's the returning back to the humble abode going for you?
Pretty close. Pretty close.
Good. I opened up Twitter real quick, right?
Yep.
Just stabbed my DoorDasher to death. Hashtag bored.
That's a rage bait right there. Or engagement bait.
I'm fine with that being engagement bait because that's the craziest fucking thing I've ever read in my life. Just murdered. What? Just stabbed my DoorDasher to death. Imagine going to court.
That could just be true. Crazy.
Oh, yeah, probably. But imagine going to court, right? On a trial. Judge opens, right? Reads out the charges. Asks, you know, how you plead. You say guilty. To stabbing your DoorDash driver.
Well, what else do you say?
Oh, no, Your Honor, I didn't stab him. He looked at me weirdly. I'm gonna go get down some...
What, I wanna place these pumpkins. Oh, I can eat them. Are they good?
Yeah, they have 5% health regen.
Which is the same as everything else. They're actually worse than meat.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's their only sole benefit.
Cooked meat gives you health regen and health boost. And 5%, which
But pumpkins are
only
cool,
give you
so.
health regen.
Only advantage is that they look cool. That's
Do we
it.
have enough to make us some iron armor now?
Should, hopefully.
Do you have light leather on you?
I don't, I put them in the chests.
Where is it? Is it too far? Over here? Where is it?
I don't think there's a distance for the chests. I think they just have to be kind of like in the same
There's
area.
definitely a distance. Oh, we gotta put it all in the tanning rack. That's the problem. Right?
I don't know.
Yeah. We have 19. So we could probably both get chest plates if we wanted.
Oh. I just broke. I just broke defending you. Alright, I'm gonna go cut down a bunch of trees. I'm guessing we're probably gonna find a place to start building a house.
We could probably do one around here somewhere.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Getting a
Let me
layout
feel it
started.
out.
But we're doing ash logs then, because that's what we have the closest to us.
Yeah.
In abundance.
I'm just gonna go cut down a bunch. Yeah.
In an abundance of caution.
I don't like how the trees go so far in the ground.
I just gotta leave it be. I'll come back to it another
Yeah.
time.
But to like make it feel like you got all the wood, you gotta like dig in the ground.
Oh. I cannot be asked to do that, so I don't.
Sorry.
I feel like cleaning it up. It's because there's a reason why I'm getting rid of it.
Yes.
What you at so far?
We have 38, but I was going for the small trees over here.
I'm looking for all the big trees. Big tree spotted. Oh, we have some oak. I'll chop down the oak and use it to burn.
I like how the trees just fall all together. It's so nice.
Hey, Nick. Oh, I found a family.
Of what?
Liberals.
Oh no.
Leave them be. It's okay. They've been throwing off. I looked at
I'm
them and
seeing
got triggered. Put me on Twitter right now.
I gotta go kill a little bit of a... I don't even know what it's called actually. Mog swamp? I think it's like Mog Swamp or something. Or Mog something.
Logging.
This thing is definitely not mogging. I don't think we're seeing the same thing right now.
No, we're definitely fucking not. I don't even know where the fuck you went.
Ooh, I found a big, huge tree.
Cut that
Big,
bitch
huge
down.
tree. It's got roots.
Deforestation is okay, and
This is the one. It's a good idea.
I'm a big fan of it. Personally, I don't think deforestation is a bad thing.
I'm about to be rich in wood right now. Crazy.
Oh, hold up. I'm getting a phone call. Oh, hey, what's up, BlackRock? You want to give me 100 billion trees? Deal. How about
This
that?
guy.
BlackRock
this guy.
called.
Oh really? Oh really?
We're in the big money
How much-
now.
How much wood you got? How much wood you got?
190.
I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 500.
Got 500 tree.
500 500 logs.
I've
That's
mostly been
enough?
finding oak. And a little bit of a mix of both. I'm collecting oak as well to use for the burn. So we can make charcoal.
Here, let's go home real quick, sleep, and then I'm gonna cut down 2 more big trees and we'll start building.
Sleep, it's day.
What? Oh, well the biome I'm in is like it's dark and rainy.
What to say,
So
bro?
I thought I
This is
thought it was nighttime.
fucking bright outside, man. I'm looking outside. There's no darkness out here.
Like it's raining in my biome right now.
Fucking biome are you in? Oh,
I don't know. It's like the swamp. I'm getting pricked by these stupid. I don't even know what they are.
liberals.
So dark around here too. I can't see nothing.
Turn on the lights.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, that's a good idea.
A good idea, guy.
Oh yeah, that's a lot of wood right there. Oh yeah. I have wood for days.
I don't believe that we'll ever have enough wood. Deforest everything.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 800 wood.
Ash,
I'm coming.
buddy.
Yeah?
There's gonna be an AI data center in our neighborhood.
Oh, I don't know.
Alright, they'll need all the water. Just don't drink any of it. The AI, it needs the water. It has to drink.
Isn't it crazy how Nvidia's stopping RAM production for
The bubble is actually already dying.
the what?
The AI bubble.
The AI bubble?
So in investments, right? Real estate, stocks,
Didn't ChatGPT go bankrupt? Like,
they're
tell me how
gonna
that
be
happened.
going bankrupt this year.
How does that
ChatGPT
even make sense?
doesn't make a profit.
They don't?
No.
Don't they have a monthly subscription?
Yeah, but they don't make enough to justify how much they're spending.
Interesting.
So ChatGPT is going to lose about $16 billion this year. It's a lot of money. Right? So if they're going to keep losing $16 billion every so often, so this year alone, okay?
Yeah.
Plus with them having to build more data centers, and those are not, there's no like, government gives you money, substitutes. The government gives you money essentially to do stuff. There's a fucking word for it. It's not
I
substitute.
don't know.
Grant.
Uh-huh.
There's no grants for building data centers that are not going to store government-related data, right? So, like,
Gotcha.
when Facebook built a whole bunch of data centers, they got grants from the government because they were going to allow the government to store data. And obviously, as you can probably figure, federal governments around the world, they have a lot of fucking data, right?
Yeah.
Especially the U.S. government. And a lot. I think on
Oh.
average, the U.S. government stores several 100,000 petabytes of data every like few months, right? So
Mhm.
OpenAI doesn't want to let the government have access to their data centers because they don't want the federal government to have access to the data and stuff that is being generated by the government. Well, by individuals, because if the government has access to that data, they can scrutinize it, right? See what's being put in, stuff like that. So, because of that, they're not getting those major grants. So, building data centers, you're looking at like anywhere ranging from like 10 million to like 2-3 billion dollars. Data centers are fucking massive. Plus the crew, they have to be protected because we're talking about people's individual data here. And let's be honest, there's some people definitely have given ChatGPT social security numbers. Keep it.
Yo, what up, people?
Let's go,
What
bitch.
up?
You want, bitch?
What up? I'm everyone in this Twitch. I'm live. Come follow me.
Let's go.
Yeah, I'm gonna ban this guy from my my Discord now. Yeah, fuck up. Just kick them. Anyways, so yeah, data centers can range anywhere from like 10 million to $1 billion to build. So they're not making enough money. They're not publicly traded either. So there's not like an additional influence and an additional influx. Plus, sure they have contracts, but there's a point in time where just AI stocks are slowly fucking dying.
Yeah.
So there's just not a lot of money in AI as there. AI is good and all for one major purpose, and that's research.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, AI can do calculations that us as humans can't really do. Or we do, but they take too long. So it doesn't justify doing it. A good example is during the space race. NASA had these things. Well, not these things. Women, specifically black women, they called them computers. Their entire purpose was counting. Okay? That's all they did. All they did was math. Well, eventually they came to learn that a computer can do that faster.
Let's sleep real quick.
Making a chest. They came to learn that a computer can do it faster. It's just setting up. So, well, it is. Eventually, consumer AI is going to shift out because there's just not going to be. And you're an American, so you definitely know that what's your country's biggest priority?
Shoot.
Making a profit, right?
Yeah, I was about to say money.
Exactly. So if there's a business out there that doesn't make enough money, then people are just not going to give it money.
Mhm.
So AI is eventually going to fall under that. Hey, by the way, this is a for-profit country. In mind, the fact that your healthcare is for-profit is barbaric. Yeah, it's not a thing here. You're not gonna go see the doctor and pay $100 trillion. Sure, the care is not the best, and I can be waiting in line for a long time, but at least I'm not gonna be in like generational amounts of debt to go see a doctor. You know,
Yeah.
I pay it with my taxes already. Universal healthcare has its flaws, but it also has its benefits. One of those big benefits is not having to think about being able to afford healthcare. I mean, how would you feel about going to see a doctor without needing to pay $100 bajillion?
I mean, that'd be nice. Oh yeah.
Yep. So
All right, I'm starting to make the foundation. What we feeling like? I'm feeling like we do this.
I want the house to be so big people think we have an imaginable amount of wealth.
Oh. We'll check a starter house. We get a bigger house later.
While you're placing it down, it looks like you're shitting it. It's too skinny. Yeah, there you go.
We're having like a little entrance on that side where it's like a wherever that is over there.
Yeah.
And over here.
I think we should do wood right here.
wood.
This.
Wait,
On each
pause,
corner.
Pause. Yes, but do it like on the outside of the corner. That makes sense.
Like right here?
Like
That?
right here.
Okay. How high?
Some depth. Let's go 4 or 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right here, which would be the cord would be 130.
Okay, so 130 everywhere.
Might even have to go a bit higher. I want to terraform more over here. Dirt's in the way.
Yeah, this one's higher at 130.
Wait, what?
Look. Unless I got it wrong. Yeah, no,
Oh,
sorry.
that's the right spot.
Yeah, I was tripping. It looked like I was going higher.
What's your FOV? I have mine maxed out, so sometimes it's hard to
Oh,
tell.
I have mine on 75.
What's the max? Like 20? 120?
I was playing mine on 90. Ah, this looks better.
Here, can you help me dig out a bunch of this dirt over here?
Yep.
I want to be able to walk around the entire place without having to climb.
No. I think we need to give money to Elon Musk. He's not rich.
This guy. Okay.
900 something billion dollars is just pocket change nowadays.
Yeah, and he gets people to play games for him.
And he had a kid with a Canadian chick.
Huh, Canadians are the worst, am I right?
Yeah, Grimes is Canadian.
Okay, so what walls? Do we just want to do ashwood walls too?
Yeah.
I'm feeling. Okay, let me go down here to the. We're not doing logs. We're gonna do planks.
Let's bring the builder bunch up here.
Alright. Right here. Let's get. What does these look like? Does this look cool? That's more like a.
That's more
like
of a base thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm feeling. Yeah. Actually, can I use those to craft them
Yes.
back into
Yep.
planks? Oh, okay.
What do you want with the door, by the way?
You can't actually. I'm just gonna put 'em-
Oh, we can't? Oh.
I don't know. I don't know yet.
I say we put the door right here.
I was thinking right here.
Right there? I feel like
Yeah,
here we
'cause
could
they're
do a
like,
cool
you know.
path. Okay, yeah, let's do it in the middle then. So right here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay. Yep, you're thinking.
I'm always a fan of doing different material where the door is.
How does this look so far? Okay. Yeah, get some. Yeah, yeah, I like that idea of the bricks. Okay, I'm just gonna finish that out.
Actually, I think I can do something that makes it look cooler.
Okay.
Look, keep the bricks like that. Oh, no, so the height of the door. So right up until here should be brick and then wood.
Ooh, wait. Hold on. Let's break this front here. Real quick. Idea. I don't know if it's gonna look good or bad. Let me come over here and see what I can make with stone. Oh. Yeah, here we go. How's this look?
Yes. Then I have windows like here.
Here. Well, they might have to be. I think they might have to be. I don't know if you can make them.
No, they're wooden windows.
You can make them.
Well, my pickaxe is broke. Oh, I can't make a repair kit.
Like this. Boom and boom. Boom. Boom.
Well.
We're cooking.
Come take a look.
Where are you?
I'm gonna go make another pick. I'm broke. Yes. That's perfect. Then we put the door here. Hold up. I have an idea.
We gotta get like an exotic flooring. We can't go like just wood or stone. We gotta go like something else. I don't know yet. We can wait on that though. Let me move. Okay. Let's show you my pickaxe. Okay. Let me make some wood here. I'm just gonna do the walls.
Look at this right here.
Oh, I like that. I like that.
Then we put the door right there. So I'm gonna put.
Is there any like cool doors? For...
I'm unsure. We'll find out. Boom, just like
I
that.
think if we get a different type of wood, we can get a different type of door. I think. Or we can go get the decorator. What's it called? The decorator's bench, and see what's in there.
I think it's a furniture bench.
Furniture bench.
Yeah, make it one. We can make different looking chests.
Wow.
Oh, that's where we make the
Wow,
beds.
chests. Oh, okay. Lanterns. Wow. Okay. Pottery. Clay. Clay. And wool and cloth. Uh huh.
Oh my god, different lighting options. Ancient candles, bamboo candles.
Trestle.
Where?
Cauldron. Earth temple door. Ooh, we can get Earth temple door. We need 4 iron for that though.
Where did you find the
Okay,
door?
It's in the one with the little guy at the end before the snowman.
Dude, we have the
Making-
iron for it. We have a lot. We have like
Which-
close to 100
Wait,
iron.
wait, craft it real quick. Craft it real quick.
Let me
I
go
don't know
grab the
how
iron.
big it is. It might be big. How much wood do you need for that? 80? 2.
For what?
The door.
Oh, I'm making it right now. Oh, this. It's good, Honor. Oh, it's pretty
How big
fucking
is it?
big.
Let me see. Let me see. We can work with that. We can work with that.
It's a big ass fucking door.
We can work with that. We can work with that. Trust.
Yeah? We'd lose our entire upper thing, but I'm down for it.
Yeah, we're gonna have to break this entire wall down.
No, not the entire wall, just the middle part. Tear down
Yeah,
just the
that's
middle.
okay.
Just tear down the middle.
So good.
No, like it's really fucking tall.
It's like, isn't it like 2 blocks wide though?
Oh. Yes, but we can still. What's good?
That might be a big door, but you still ain't fitting through it.
Shut the fuck up, bitch. Get the fuck out of here. Go stream.
Well, what if we did 2 doors? We can do 2 doors, can't we?
Boom.
I think we do 2. I think we do 2 door. A 2 door.
You sure?
Yeah. Get another one. Get another one.
Alright, 1 second. We got more ore smelting.
I mean, you want this place to look luxury. 2 doors is the way to go.
We want the poor to think we're rich.
We're gonna need more stone right here too. Ooh, I was gonna idea too. Did you make that out of stone?
I did, yeah.
Okay. Let's craft that.
So you scroll down a little. Yeah, there you go.
I have a door too. Oh, I can't see. Hell yeah!
Ho ho
Hell yeah!
ho!
Hell yeah! And then what
Ah.
I'm thinking is come in here real quick.
Okay.
On the edges of the wall, like
What?
on the edges of the floor, this is what this is like. And then in the middle is a different block.
I like that. We could do wood in the middle.
Maybe, maybe.
Here, let's
If
see
we
how.
can find a different, if we can find a different like brick
I want to see how it
or
blends.
stone.
Look how it blends.
I'm not feeling it. I'm
No?
not feeling it. Nah.
You got any raw stone? Oh, I have stone brick.
Ah. Can we do anything with dirt?
Probably.
Wait, sandstone. We can go in the desert and get sandstone, maybe.
Put it in the floor? It's too much. It would be weird. The brown with the yellow like that.
Mm,
I don't know.
maybe.
It would really kind of fuck. I'll go get some sandstone and we'll see. Hold up. I'll go get sandstone.
There's also sand cobble.
See.
And I have this basalt cobblestone that's like kind of a darker stone that might look nice.
We'd have to go get more, but take a look. I'll go
No
get
worries.
cobblestone. By the way, we live close to a tower.
Is that gonna be? Isn't one of the towers you've been to like made of something?
Yeah, sandstone.
Oh.
It has different types of sandstone. I'll collect it and see, then we can take a look.
Build these walls. Hell yeah, it's a nice door. It's nice and big.
Alright, look, a lizard. Let me collect all the sandstone that there is here. Different variations of it. Sandstone cobble. Burn it. Hmm. Is there anything you can do with dirt? I don't remember what you said.
No,
You imagine.
that would be crazy.
I would like give people an excuse to build dirt homes.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
They could do like cool shit with it.
Yeah, I tried the basalt. It's a little too dark.
Okay, so.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
There's this one that looks pretty cool if we built something out in the desert.
That's a nice floor block. Like, yeah. Hmm.
I think it's too yellow.
Hmm. I have some. We can go get mossy cobble maybe and use mossy cobble.
I could work with that.
Or do we just do stone bricks, Loki?
Here, let's take a look at Mossy first. I got 5. There's some outside our homes though. All the little ribbon thing. Okay, here's mossy stone.
Oh, it like. Ooh. Ooh. It does
Question is,
I
can we
kind of like that though.
can we make it if we get moss?
Well, we could mix and match, right? We could like.
You
the whole
oh
thing
yeah,
out
yeah.
Okay, let's do the whole thing out of stone brick first, and then get mossy later.
I'll go grab a bunch more. Doing good, bro. We're doing good.
Oh yeah. Now, do you want to do 2 floors or 1 floor? I feel like we can get away with 2.
We could do 2. I'd be open to 2.
If it looks good.
This marble.
Marble. Like a marble countertop.
Yes.
Like some like modern looking kitchen.
Oh, we're still pretty classy.
Yeah, we have a log cabin with stone flooring and marble countertops.
We got money like that.
Is that mountain right here basalt or stone?
Cobble. Hold stone.
Okay, good. We're just gonna be able to destroy this entire thing then.
Down the road.
Yeah. We're gonna need a lot of it for the floor.
Yeah, I got a whole bunch of mossy cobble. I'll turn it to mossy stone brick.
You
Got-
can't pick block stuff, which is really annoying.
I got 33 in total. It's not a lot, but
Okay.
let's see how this looks.
What are you doing?
Huh?
What are you doing?
I'm going to help you.
Oh, okay. Does the inside wall look different from the outside? No. The top does, though. Don't do it to the top. By the way.
Oh, fuck.
That's alright. Because if we do a second floor, this will be what the floor will be for it.
Yep.
And it kind of hides in between the logs.
Oh, maybe not here, actually.
Mm.
We gotta leave where the door is.
I mean, I guess you could, yeah. It might not matter. Right. I need to empty my inventory out. Jeez.
I need to clean up.
Hmm.
That's so much shit, dude.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm gonna make a shovel.
Can you?
Yeah.
Where?
Bench. You can only do iron, though. Iron's like the
Oh,
lowest.
I'm a craft one too. Yeah, that's nice. Whoa. Moves weird. What the heck?
Besides, though, it makes terraforming much faster.
Yeah. I don't know if I like it though. It's kind of weird.
You gotta get used to it. I like it, though. I mean, it has its perks. It makes clearing off, like, mountains or large spaces much faster. Issue is that it will fuck up your terraforming. So you have to, like, come back and repatch whatever extra it took off. Which is fine. You know, it's not really the end of the world.
Yep.
Actually, I want to see if I can make the ornate blocks with mossy. Mix and match that.
I tried that. I don't think you can.
No, you can't. Just get reverted back to. Damn. That's a bummer. Okay, I'll still mix and match.
Are you gonna mix and match?
Just like that. Just two like this.
Okay. Okay, I like that. Yeah.
Just add a bit of flavor to this door.
The building kind of goes crazy sometimes. Annoying.
Really. Oh, fast. Yeah, 40 was definitely too much.
Perfect. All right.
Okay, so.
All right. Yeah, it's kind of like break random ones.
Like, even some on the side pieces as well to break.
I feel like one right here. How's that looking? How's that looking?
I think we had one.
Maybe
One
one right
here.
here too. Yeah, that looks chill.
Nope. Fuck yes. Lean with it. Now we have torches. I know we can make different torches.
Yeah, let's look at the lighting here. Ancient candle, bamboo candle, candle, chandelier. Hold on. Maybe we shouldn't do any of that just yet.
Oh?
Maybe just like normal torches for now.
Yeah, that works.
I don't have tree. I don't even have tree sap to build any.
We have a bunch in the,
Oh yeah, we do. Oh yeah. And tree fiber. Can't speak. I'm gonna make like 100 torches. 200. I made 400 torches.
Cubs.
And then I think if we do boom, 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 boom. We need some windows on each side, looking a little bit plain on all these other sides.
I'll make some.
Maybe a back door on one, just to like lead out to a farm or something.
But we use regular doors.
Yeah, like a small. Yeah, like a small.
Here, let me make a few windows here. I made 42 windows.
Yo, okay, let's see.
Here, I'll put them down. You
Um,
cut. I'll put them down. Oh, I just noticed it has the effect of lights coming in.
What do you mean?
Come to the windows and take a look.
Did I do that right?
You not see the
What?
the rays coming in?
Oh, I think I have that turned off.
Oh, take a look at my stream.
Let me just turn my. Let me turn my. I'm gonna turn my graphics to epic real quick. Yeah, yeah, I see in it. I'm seeing
Yeah,
it.
it's cooking. Oh, where are my graphics at? Awesome. Oh, they're on high. Oh, it's because of motion blur. I turn off motion blur.
Oh, does that go crazy?
I fucking hate motion blur.
Is it like it ruins your FPS too, doesn't it? Oh,
It's not just my FPS.
is
I don't like the weird waviness of it.
yeah. Where is it? Oh, am I tripping? Motion blur, motion blur, motion.
No,
It's
no,
got
no.
the film.
There's no screenshot mode.
You can do F12, right?
Oh, toggle. Okay, there you go. That's what I was looking for. Taking a picture of this.
Should we hit the windows up one more? What's over there from the outside, at least?
Hold up. Something wrong.
Actually, no. These look good. These look good. Oh wow, this game looks nice. Shoot.
There is a tool that did us a lot.
What type of tool?
The builder's hammer.
What's that gonna do?
Oh, I'm trying to remember what the fuck it is. Build it. Oh. It's like a build tool that we can make. It's an iron tool.
Is it in the armor room?
Oh.
Oh. How do you make it? Let me just look it up.
How there's a fucking. Saw it earlier. I know it's an iron tool.
Gather 6 tree trunks and 3 stone crafted directly in your inventory.
Oh, there it is.
Standard workbench. Wait, for real?
Yeah, I found it. There you go.
What to do?
Oh, I'm on fire.
Yep. Yes, you are.
Oh, it changes the block
Wait.
styles. Yeah.
Wait, that's peak, actually. Oh, yeah. Change the one over here back to stone brick. But that's good, though. I like that. That's like helpful. So then we can, like, change them out.
Yeah, there's no durability either.
Wait, how'd you make it?
Okay, so go to the regular bench.
Regular bench?
Yep. There's an iron builder's hammer. It's the first iron item.
That's nice.
I know there's some things
Use
that
that.
we need to use. Like, there's some things that requires us to use. Oh, different furnitures. Oh, yeah, we should probably go. Different beds.
Let me light up the inside real quick.
We'll sleep on the second floor, by the way. I think that'd be a good idea. Let's put the torches next to the windows.
Too many torches. Too many torches.
Too many?
Yeah, that's. I think. Let me map out these other windows here. So I'm feeling 3 in. Three in. And maybe another 3 in. And have one big 3-way window here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did not mean to drink that. Okay. How's that feel?
Looking breezy. Hold up. Let's see.
I'll rearrange these. Boom, 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 boom. There we go. There we go. Okay.
Base of the windows.
Can we do it? Do we do it to the windows? No, you can't. I like that. You do if we do it up here. No, that's not looking good. Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Tips. No, cause yeah, cause the second floor.
What about that one?
Yes. See how it looks on the outside.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, we need to light out the couple torches on the outside
I
here.
think we're cooking a little bit there, Ash. What do you fucking think?
This is fire.
Oh my god. Yo, we're crazy with it.
The scary part is the roof. That's my
Well,
big
are
worry.
we doing a second floor or?
Yeah, well, if we do a second floor, it's gonna be a roof no matter what.
Second floor can be where the beds are.
Say what?
Second floor can be where the beds are.
Yeah.
Like some bedrooms.
Yeah. And maybe, hear me out here. To your left, no, to your right,
Yeah.
over here. We could make the second floor overhang this section right here.
Oh yeah.
And do some like, I don't know, balcony or something, I don't know.
Yeah, I like that actually. A balcony.
Some light.
We're cooking a little bit there. I'll stay out here so I can put the torches outside.
So you get the torches in here too. Let's put a window here. And then is that one away? No, it's like touching the. So then, in theory, it should go here, right? How's that look to you?
Yep.
And then two here.
No, wait, hold up. Better idea.
Okay.
For this one, since it's a little weirder.
Mm-hmm.
That cuts right into the corner.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
How about this? This was a little bit
Could
more
make a-
finicky. Like that.
Oh yeah. You're good. Yeah, you're good. Yeah. That's a good idea. We could make one long window right here. Just.
Yeah.
Nice. And then right here should be one last window, right? Actually, no. Bring this in. Window here. Here. And one big window. Perfect. It's can fire in here.
Fuck yes. Maybe get rid of this torch here because it kind of contradicts with this torch. It's off a bit.
Yes, yeah.
Hooked, bro.
Let's sleep real quick. I don't like how the moon in the sky at night looks. It looks too real to me.
Like it. A good vibe. But I get you. Hungry shoe.
Oh, we're up.
Second. Need 2 quick seconds, okay? I'm back.
Okay. Okay.
Let's keep on cooking.
All right. So we need to make some stairs, and we need to decide what floor slash roof will be above us, like right here.
Okay.
So I would preferably not the same type of wood, but not stone. You know.
Yes.
I had 6, 7 torches. It's crazy.
6, 7. Oh, buddy, don't make me use my fucking hammer on you.
Can you hammer the? Can you hammer the door? No, you can't.
It'd be nice if we could have pressure plates.
It would be nice.
Alright, shall we start working
At
on the
least-
second floor?
Yeah, I'm thinking we use, just like stone bricks or stairs, right?
Yeah. Now for the balcony, by the way.
Yeah.
Should we do it fully overhanging?
We'll see when we get to that part. I don't even know yet.
If we do fully overhanging, then we can just build a platform right here.
Where should the stairs be? I'm feeling like right here. Boom.
I have slabs or something.
Whoa. 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 What the? What the? Oh god, how do you even use slabs?
By using them.
But they're sideways. I mean, that's good, that's cool, but like...
That's because of how
have to,
you
like,
were
get up
facing.
and in there? But they like get... I see your idea here.
Hmm?
Put another block down? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wait. Idea.
Okay.
Boom, 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 boom. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. Like that. And then maybe we could put like 3 chests in there.
Okay.
I don't know.
Like that. Now, how are we gonna do the floor?
We need to decide a floor block. What were we thinking? What were we thinking? What were we thinking?
That I don't know.
Hmm.
My issue is the torches.
Torches? What about the torches?
If we do it level to this here,
Let's go in here.
and we just put another staircase. We could like
Got any oak?
no, but there's some in the chest. Hold up. I'll do it right there.
Nice. Okay, I'm just gonna make it on the planks. It's not looking very different from what this is, actually. Funny enough.
Probably just a little lighter.
It's not even different at all, actually. We're gonna need to like go get some like a redwood or something. Hold on. Let me go explore.
Where is it? Ugh.
Is that gravel?
Flint. We can make flint steel.
No, what is this right here? Oh, we could try birch. Try some birch flooring. A
Eat.
little different. You think? I don't know, man. It might hit.
Right? No.
Got a bear there? Hello. This is always. Oh, I got an aspen log. Good. Nice.
Slimed out, bitch. Oh, fuck.
Oh, what is that?
The Googler Giggler monster.
The Fortnite guy?
Yes, sir.
What type of wood is this? No, we don't want that type of wood. There's one called aspen wood. I think might look cool.
Aspen. Listen, you. Oh, you got a liberal on you.
Oh.
Go away, Joe Biden.
I think I have enough now. Hopefully this looks cool. 6-7 pieces of wood.
6-7. 6-7. Consider that a fucking warning there, Al.
Dude, the daggers go crazy with movement.
Animations.
Another frog guy? No, it's just a frog. Okay.
Oh,
It's not as bright as you would think.
really?
Yep.
Alright. Oh, no. Oh, wow.
You
Okay.
feel?
Yeah, it kind of blends in pretty well.
Can we do this? Yeah, it'll work. And then can we then do this? So like that? Does that feel smooth to you?
It does.
Okay.
Actually, hold up. Let's put a bit of a barrier. Okay, try it.
Yeah, good. And I was thinking for the top part, I don't know if this is gonna look good, but the wall won't be, like the logs won't be one out, it'll be with the wall.
Oh, here?
So like, no, it'd be here still,
Okay.
but the wall would also be like this.
Oh, in line.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Let's take a look on the outside.
Do we think it could look fire? And we could do that along the whole way too.
Yeah, whole trim. Yeah, let's do it.
Alright. Let me get the aspen. Lower down.
Not through the walls. How high up do we want it?
Do the same as before.
It was 4, right?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh.
Maybe do 4. No, do 5. Yeah, do
3,
5.
4, 5.
No, do 4.
4 it is.
Can't walk past that. Might be like that.
4.
Nice.
Yup. Doing the roof is gonna be a bitch.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's gonna look like garbage, too.
Sure we can make something work. By the way, we still doing the balcony?
Don't build it yet. We'll just leave it.
Oh
as
no,
it
I'm
is
just
for now.
checking. Just don't want to do that.
I don't know yet. It's also kind of just not a bad spot. We're gonna have to like tear. If we had it like completely inverse, but and like had it facing this way, it'd be a good area, low key.
think we could
I was
still make it
thinking
pretty
like
open.
we could like build just like a just extend the second floor over it and like have like a patio down here. Type beat.
Make a roof. Makeshift roof.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we do the balcony, right? Do it like this, kind of.
Yeah.
So we can still access it from the ground by building a stairs. So we can access the second floor faster.
Let's get rid of so much dirt.
So we can still have like
Sorry.
a staircase of some kind to go inside. So there's still another way to get into the second floor. No, not enclose it. Not enclose it.
That's what I was thinking.
Like not fully enclose it. Well, if it's about.
Okay.
Well, no, actually, hold up. I think about yeah, balconies are fully enclosed. But-
What?
Balconies are usually pretty enclosed. They have a roof.
I was thinking more of just like an extension, like how you like just. build, like, a
Oh,
roof out of the house,
yep.
And then we just have like a patio below it or something.
So then I can tear down. Do I want to keep that pillar, the middle one?
Sure. It makes sense.
Yeah. No matter what, it becomes flush, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess here you could.
Open this up right here.
Could open it up or leave it. What do you think? We could. I think low key we leave it, so it makes it look nicer on the outside.
Makes it
The
look clean.
inside we're gonna have to like maybe like if there's carpet maybe we do some finessing.
Yeah, I like that. Huh.
I need to go look for more flooring wood. Floor wood. I'll be back.
Yeah. You're at a bridge already. Or Aspen.
Well, maybe birch will give me the same wood since it's like the same type of thing.
Maybe.
Let's see.
Oh, if you could get me a little bit more ash. Like another 100 maybe.
Whoa, birch low key looks fire. We could have a white picket fence.
Ah, yes, the average suburban dream. That right?
Wait, more what wood?
Huh?
More ash log here. Come here.
Yeah, not a lot though.
I'll just summon the.
Yeah.
There. How am I gonna find more wood?
Mm-mm-mm. Burp, 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 burp-doo. Oh. Plus 3 hours in I know. Very weird for me to be able to stream this long. I gotta find other games where I can stream this long, but to be fair, Hytale's pretty fun for 2 people.
That's what I'm saying. Like I would already be done now.
Yeah,
streaming
me too.
by myself.
I think the thing is, it's finding games that are fun to either play with people or alone. Hytale can be fun alone if you can entertain yourself. I will say, I'm looking forward to playing some of these story games. I feel like, well, for the 24-hour stream, Shengoku Dynasty, it's not a story game. But Shadow of one of the Lord of the Rings games I'm gonna be playing for the 24-hour stream.
I'll be right back.
Yep. Hey, what do you think, by the way, of the house so far? I need your professional legal opinion. Oh, it's fine. I can. No, I think I need to find games that I can play alone for entertainment. Yeah, I know. We haven't had a chance to build it yet. But this is the outside so far. See how it kind of like folds in at the bottom and then goes normal at the top? It's the window design that we have. And we're gonna build a patio down here and a balcony up here. That looks on the inside. Through the floor. What do you think? By the way, I'll come join you guys a bit after we're done building this house. We're gonna the stream, so I'm gonna come play with you guys. Some bay windows. I don't think we have those in this game. Is there like different types of windows? I haven't had a chance to look. That I don't know. Probably. Probably not. I believe Ash has something to do on another Minecraft server later. Likely gonna stream again tonight, but maybe like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 or like a story game of some kind. Maybe play Kingdom Come Deliverance, Red Dead Redemption 2. Maybe start playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 on stream. Maybe start with 1, then go down to 2. Oh no, we'll see. Maybe find another game to play, something new. There's a bunch of, there's these Fears to Fathom games that I've been wanting to actually like sit down and play a lot. Stream them, so maybe I can do that tonight. They're like weird retro horrors. I'll show you it when I get back down there. Is Honor still streaming? Just kind of wait. You guys want to go do? Oh, okay.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
Finish this house.
Alright, I'm gonna go like pretty soon too. So let's. We probably won't get to the roof. That's for sure.
That's fine. Let's at least
Did you
finish.
do all the walls? Okay, maybe we will get to the roof. I don't know.
How about this? How about this? We'll finish the floor and get the windows in. We'll do the roof another time.
Got it.
Wait until you come back. Builder's bench. Let me make it.
Is your stream hot? Oh, okay, you just weren't moving. I have 74 aspen. Is that gonna be enough? Get another tree.
Hopefully.
You could even pick designs with the aspen wood too.
Yeah, when you get back here, we'll take a look.
Where's home? Home's that way
Home.
and far.
How far are you?
About I don't know. It doesn't tell you your coordinates on the map, so I can't really tell you. That sucks. That's a bear. Oh no, oh no, oh no, it's a bear, it's a bear, it's a bear, it's a bear.
My name is Barack Hussein Oblama. Blam!
Man, I really gotta stop saying that. I've been saying it way too much. Oh, did you not do the last wall part?
Which last part? No, that's a balcony.
Oh, you did on the wall. Okay. Okay, I think I see what you mean now. I think I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
You should have done the walls here then, right?
Yeah, I didn't. I just wanted to wait so you could see, like, the vision.
Okay. Let me get the wood blocks up in here. Hopefully I have enough. Do you want to do a different floor for the balcony?
What do you mean? Oh, yes, yes.
Okay. I don't think I got enough, dude. Man. It's looking good down. It looks good down here, though. That's for sure. Wow. Looks nice and cozy down here.
Okay, the
Can you
door.
do anything to? Can you use the tool on logs at all?
No.
And then the door goes here. What if we have two doors? One on.
No, that's not even. We'd have a 2 and a 3.
Uh,
I already tried. Only 20k left. Fuck. So.
let me claim my points and put some in.
Oh, you motherfucker.
It's about a little more. I didn't get enough wood, but
Go get more.
I'll finish it next time.
Yes. Alright. Chatteroni pepperoni. God, I can't believe I just said that.
Pepperoni at your big age?
Don't fucking ask. I ask too many fucking questions. So, I have this weird thing when I end stream, I have whoever I'm streaming with say something fucking stupid. So say something fucking stupid.
Hold on, let me think.
Alright.
Mm. I
Mm.
don't know. I don't say many stupid things. You know.
It's your time to shine, man.
Six, 6, 7, 6, 7, 6.